York suffered through a winter of barbaric proportions. So what better place to be than Port St. Lucie, where the weather is warm, and the Mets are getting ready for what they hope will be a turnaround season. All the pieces appear to be in place for the Mets. After 6 straight losing seasons, the captain is hoping for a bounce-back season. Curtis Granderson hoping for a better second year in New York. The Mets got award-winning seasons last year from Jacob deGrom and from Juan Lagares, and they're primed for big years as well. Lucas Duda was a 30-home run hitter last year. Michael Kadire has come in to help out on the offense. And the main attraction, the return of Matt Harvey. At Tradition Field in Port St. Lucie, Florida, the New York Mets played the Detroit Tigers. Spring training on SNY is presented by Citi. And a pleasant good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to Port St. Lucie. Gary Cohen, Ron Darling, Keith Hernandez. Very happy to be back with you for our 10th year of Mets baseball on SNY. Seems like only yesterday. Well, today is a big day for the Mets. It's their 3rd spring training game, but they're first at home. And it's the first time that Matt Harvey goes to the mound in 18 months. And for the Mets, this is a very special day. Matt last pitched on August the 24th of 2013 against the same team they'll be facing today. But 2013, even despite being shortened, was a season to remember for Matt Harvey. Finished 4th in the Cy Young Award balloting. And after Tommy John surgery in October of that year, now 16 months post-surgery, he goes back to the mound today in competition for the first time, and a sellout crowd has gathered here at Tradition Field to watch him. So the question, Ronnie, going into this first spring training start is what the expectations should be from Matt.
Well, the expectations are huge, but I think even Matt said, don't put too much emphasis. It's just one day today. The problem is, I've never seen anyone get a standing ovation as he ran out to warm up, and he represents for the Mets a new beginning, a new awakening, a success maybe that is in now, is in the near future. He's got a lot of people to help him. Jacob deGrom with the Rookie of the Year. Zach Wheeler, I think, established himself as a major leaguer last season, and then 3 veterans to go along as they try to fight for those 5 berths.
So the Mets seem to have the pitching in place to carry them a long way. The question is, how will the offense fare? An offense that was a middle-of-the-pack unit last year. They finished 8th in the National League in runs scored, a little further down in some other categories. They had some younger players have encouraging years last year, and they have some veteran players trying to work their way back to their previous form.
Well, you're right, Gary. The numbers aren't eye-popping offensively. The Mets lacked in scoring runs. You had a couple guys come through and emerge last year. You got Kadire that was brought in, a batting champion up in Colorado a couple of years ago, a professional hitter. But you know what? It all revolves around David Wright. David Wright coming off the shoulder. He says he's 100% on that shoulder. He has worked on it and rehabbed all winter. Says he has no pain. The Mets are going to need to have the captain in that number 3 hole in the lineup to have the years that he had in 2005 and 2008, where he drove in over 100 runs and hit 25-plus home runs. That'll take the pressure off the entire lineup if David can get back to form.
David now 32 years old and hoping that this is the year that he's able to turn it around after the shoulder bothered him last year. It's the Mets and the Tigers spring training baseball. Sunny day at Tradition Field. Back in a moment. today for the Mets. That's a month to get ready, a month to get the bats ready, smile for some cameras, sign some autographs as spring training gets rolling into high gear in Port St. Lucie. New York Mets baseball on SNY is brought to you by Citi, proud sponsor of the New York Mets. By Land Rover, visit your local certified pre-owned Land Rover tri-state retailer. By Geico, 15 minutes could save you 15% or more on car insurance. Visit geico.com for a free rate quote. And by Baja Mar, the Bahamian Riviera. The fourth member of our crew this year is Steve Gelbs. Very happy to have him aboard, and he's been here at spring training longer than all of us. Steve, what have been your impressions of the Mets camp so far?
Well, Gary, obviously you have your top storylines, the return of Matt Harvey, the heightened expectations, but something that's really stood out to me is just how quickly these hitters have embraced Kevin Long and how they've been raving about him. And we're not talking about bit players here. We're talking about Curtis Granderson, David Wright, Daniel Murphy, just to name a few. Those guys have been the most outspoken. And the two things that you constantly hear when talking to these guys across the board is that Kevin Long has been ultra prepared from the offseason on, and that he takes an individualistic approach, that he treats every guy individually, doesn't try to paint many broad brushes. And no more is that an example than in how he deals with Daniel Murphy. Murphy was telling me today that he gets a sheet at the beginning of the offseason, strengths, weaknesses, things to work on. He turned to his wife when he got that sheet and said, this guy gets it. We'll see if the Mets do. They need to improve. We're third to last in batting average team-wise last season.
Kevin Long's been referred to this spring as the celebrity batting coach. We'll see whether he can live up to that. He has certainly been working awfully hard. It's the Mets and the Tigers. Matt Harvey takes the mound when we come back. It's been more than 18 months since he last took the mound in a competitive environment, but Matt Harvey is back in the middle of the diamond and ready to throw pitches in anger.
Well, it's interesting seeing his stats. Hasn't pitched last since 2013 against the same Detroit Tiger team.
Toyota starting lineup for the Tigers, who are without Miguel Cabrera and Ian Kinsler and J.D. Martinez and a big host of their team, but Castellanos had a big rookie year last year. Rajay Davis and Anthony Goes are competing for the center field job, and Jose Iglesias back from a year on the sidelines because of injury. But that's the lineup that Matt Harvey will dig in against, and I can only imagine what's roiling through his guts right now.
Well, it was interesting to watch. Before the Mets were announced, he sprinted out way before the rest of his team. You know, when you're going out, Terry Collins told him before the game, just go out there, consider it they're in Mets uniforms, just like it's batting practice, and go out and just work on throwing some strikes.
Harvey's last pitch was thrown to the Detroit Tigers August the 24th of 2013. And his first pitch comes to Anthony Goes, and it misses away, and we're underway. And Goes fouls back the fastball 1-1.
Ronnie, got to be a little butterflies going on there, missing a whole season, and even though it's a spring training game.
You know, you will talk the talk. You'll tell everyone it's no big deal. I'm just going to try to work on my pitches. But right now, he's trying to throw the ball through d'Arnaud, the catcher.
And goes. Couldn't handle the breaking ball. 1-2.
Completely fooled him there. Over the top, 12-6 hook there. Beautiful.
That will turn 26 years of age before spring training comes to an end. Watched him during live batting practice earlier in the week, and his curveball was breaking extremely well. It's a pitch that's kind of taken a backseat to his slider since his college days, but a pitch he's been throwing since he was a kid. Swing and a miss, and he strikes out his first man as goes down on the fastball, 1 away.
Well, there's a phrase that players use, petrol. That's what this is right here on the outside corner and right by Ghost. Beautiful compact motion, exact same motion we saw a year and a half ago. Stiff front leg, such a strong athlete is Harvey. Kind of overpowers the baseball.
So 1 out. Here's Jose Iglesias, who missed all of last year with stress fractures in both shins. A defensive wizard who came over from the Red Sox, and he breaks his bat, and Harvey handles it. And quickly there are 2 out.
All right, the Mets defense, we're going to run it by you here. It's brought to you by Lexus, your New York Metropolitans. Lagares, congratulations. First Gold Glove in center field, and boy, did he earn that. Newcomer in left, John Mayberry. On the infield, Kadire. We're going to see Kadire a lot at first base this year, I think, against left-hand pitching. And d'Arnaud, of course, had the wonderful second half offensively behind the plate.
d'Arnaud's got a new number, right, guys? Number 7 instead of 15.
Lucky number. Switched with his catching coach, Bob Guerin. Here's Rajay Davis, and he takes a strike. 97 from Harvey.
Not yours, Ross. Get him down.
And his first slider misses low and away, 1-1. How important is it, Ronnie, for him to throw all of his pitches?
I honestly, early in spring training, would never concentrate on throwing all of my pitches in the first spring training game. It wouldn't be till about 2 weeks into March that I would even throw all of my pitches, because you have to have that arm strength. But you know what? He's been waiting 18 months to do this. It's a whole different deal.
I don't know if you guys have noticed the gun on the fastballs. 96, 97, that last one.
Saw it down to first. Kadire makes the flip. And it's an easy inning for Matt Harvey in his first inning back. 10 pitches, 3 up, 3 down. Let's come to bat against David Price when we come back. And other than the absence of Lucas Duda, this is pretty much the opening day lineup for the Mets. Duda's been suffering from a side muscle injury, took BP today. Juan Lagares is going to get the first crack at leading off. That's certainly the preference of Terry Collins, and Lagares leads off against David Price and takes a strike.
Interesting to watch David Price. Almost starts in the stretch position, but then has a windup after that. 15-12 last year, but only 4-4 after he was traded as a hired gun for the Tigers late in the year in 11 starts.
That having been said, he pitched the last day of the season and pitched a shutout into the 8th inning against the Twins to clinch the division for them. And although they got swept by the Orioles in the division series, he pitched a gem in the 3rd game.
He's one of the elite pitchers in the game. 271 punch-outs last year and 248 innings.
Quickly ahead on Lagares, 0-2. And Juan punches one to shallow right. Xavier Avery in to grab it, and that's the first out.
And we'll look at the Ram Tiger defense. Detroit Tigers, or Tigres. And you can see Anthony Ghost in center field. Got him from Toronto. Iglesias, as Gary mentioned, out all year, a real slick fielder. And, of course, a lot of the starters not here on this opening game here at Tradition Field for the Tigers.
Here's Curtis Granderson in his 2nd year as a Met, and nobody is happier with the arrival of the new Mets hitting coach Kevin Long than is Curtis Granderson.
Well, he had some of his biggest years with Long as the hitting coach with the Yankees. 41 and 119 one season in New York.
Here's Kevin Long, who has certainly made an impact in the psyches of all these hitters early in the spring.
Well, Granderson lobbied for him to come over here and take over as the hitting instructor. And Gary, you and I were at the exhibition game, the inter-squad game about 2-3 days ago, and Granderson really, what I noticed, had some really nice hacks, a couple beautiful swings. Not so corkscrewed as he was last year. He was so tight at the plate. Looks a little more relaxed.
You know, the one thing that you hear about Long is that he's not going to look to make hitters cookie cutter. But there's one aspect of the setup that it seems that everybody is getting from Kevin, and that is to be really solid on their back leg, to really dig in with that back foot.
Well, you got to drive off your back foot, and then your front foot with the stride. A lot of guys don't stride today, basically, just a wide spread.
Good break.
Yep. Sorry, Gary. The front foot, when you stride on the inside of your foot, and that gives you the balance. But your back leg is your back foot is your ankle. There's no doubt.
So I guess what he's trying to do is that with so many kids coming to him now, big league level without a stride, there's got to be some transfer of weight. He's doing that by loading up on the back leg early.
Precisely. I think with the steroid era, and I hate to always bring that up, with a lot of guys' upper body, they lost the rhythmic swings.
So here is David Wright, who starts his 12th year as a Met. That's kind of hard to believe. And he takes a strike, and no year was more frustrating for David than last year. He hit .269, just 8 home runs, was bothered by a shoulder most of the year, and it's an open question as to how much of his drop-off last year was the result of the shoulder. But certainly David is committed to putting together a year more reminiscent of what he's done over his first 10 seasons.
Well, you can see those numbers right there. Met history.
Trails only Darryl Strawberry for the home run lead. If he could hit 22 this year and catch him, it'd be a good year. Price ahead 0-2, and David takes a strike on the outside. Masterful work by Price in a 1-2-3 opening inning. Matt Harvey gets his second go-round in just a moment. Harvey had a very impressive first inning, a 10-pitch 1-2-3 inning. Broke a bat along the way, struck out a hitter, showed off his 2 breaking balls. Nick Castellanos leads off for the Tigers in the second. Castellanos, a good rookie season last year, just 23 years old. Well, Matt Harvey's the main attraction, but there's more where that came from. Noah Syndergaard will pitch next for the Mets. It's been an interesting week for Noah. And there are the rest of the crew scheduled to pitch today for the Mets, brought to you by Land Rover. Sean Gilmartin, a candidate to be the second lefty in the bullpen, a Rule 5 draft pick.
Interesting that Mejia is preceding Familia. It's usually the other way around.
Well, I think that the Mets closer's role is certainly up for grabs.
Unless you're an elite closer who has the job locked up, then you pitch the 3rd inning of these games and get out, and you got a 150 tee time.
Oh, please. I don't want to hear it.
Harvey misses inside, and it's 2-1. Jordan Leonardson is the on-deck batter. 97 from Harvey, 2-2.
I like what I'm seeing.
Well, we've seen Matt when he is completely geeked up. I don't think that's the case today, and I think that speaks well to his putting this game in perspective.
Like I said in the when we were talking about in the open, he said, hey, listen, it's March 6th. Let's not get crazy. Just want to get my work in. This is all a process to get to early April. That's when you want to be ready. He knows that.
2-2. Into center field, and the Gold Glover, shading his eyes, gives way to Granderson. 1 out. Better angle for Granderson. Nicely done. Well, Matt Harvey in his big league career has thrown 237 innings. He has a career ERA of 2.39. He is the real deal, even when he has a bloody nose. Remember that?
Oh, my gosh. I'm sure
it's a great picture.
Sure, you have to show that one.
Here's Leonardson, who played in Toledo AAA last year and hit 249, 10 home runs. For his first base for the Tigers, a combination of Miguel Cabrera and Victor Martinez, 2 of the best hitters in the game, both trying to get themselves ready following injuries. 0-2 to Leonardson.
Leonardson, a Canadian, interesting, played in the Little League World Series and the College World Series with Oregon State.
That is throwing it right by him right there.
Harvey ahead 0-2 and takes care of him on 3 pitches. Second strikeout for Matt. 5 up and 5 down.
Well, I just loving what I'm seeing, Ronnie. I don't see any hint of him trying to overthrow.
You'll get some ribbing on the bench when you're a hitter and go up and the pitcher throws it by you like that. You'll get some kidding like, take the donut off the bat, will you?
No, dial it up a notch.
There's Brad Ausmus in his second season as the Tigers skipper.
Backup catcher for years with the Houston Astros.
Now the plan was for Matt to throw 35 pitches and 2 innings today. He's thrown 19 pitches with 2 out of the second. There's no way they would give him a 3rd inning.
He would not. He'll probably, if he needs any extra pitches, he'll throw them on the side after this inning is done.
Syndergaard getting ready to pitch the 3rd, so Harvey trying to complete a perfect 2 innings, which is what Bartolo Colon did in his first outing last night against the Nationals. 6 up, 6 down. And a good looking breaking ball for a strike. 1-2.
And it's as much as Harvey getting his 2 innings of work. Good breaking ball right at him. Holiday stayed on the inside corner. But also Syndergaard is going to be ready. You don't want to sit him down.
One and 2 to Brian Holiday. And he misses with the slider. 2-2. By the way, it's that season when the angle of the sun sometimes causes sunspots that affect our transmission. We apologize. There's nothing anybody can do about it.
And not Aurora Borealis, nothing like that, right?
Just momentary angle of the sun. Kind of like a sharp breaking ball from Mother Nature.
And, you know, right now the Sun's in a very inactive phase, as the folks up north, I'm sure you can attest to. You've had a real rugged winter, I understand.
Sun's working just fine here in Florida. 78 degrees.
I got 4 feet of snow in my backyard.
Don't we all? 2-2 from Harvey. Up and away. 99 from Matt, trying to put the finishing touches on his 2 innings.
That was more like, let me just see how hard I can throw one.
Daniel Fields would be next. 3-2 to Holiday, and the breaking ball, strike 3 call. So Harvey finishes with a flourish. Drops in the hammer on 3 and 2. 6 up and 6 down for Harvey. I think you'd call that a successful return.
Sign him up.
Home second inning, Michael Kadire takes outside for ball 1. Kadire signed with the Mets, 2-year free agent deal. He'll turn 36 before the end of March. Coming off an injury-plagued season in Colorado, nonetheless, when healthy, backed up what he had done the year before, which was win a National League batting title.
Came up in 2002 with the Twinkies. That's the Twins, folks. Sorry.
Price bounces one in there, 2-1. Well, there's no question that adding Michael Kadire, if he stays healthy, lengthens the Mets batting order.
And a professional hitter, too. And today's standard doesn't strike out a whole lot. Goes the other way. Line drive hitter.
What's a professional hitter mean to you? Like, what does that mean?
Guy knows the strike zone. Knows how to go the other way. Situational hit.
There you go. Price behind 3-1. And Kadire is the first base runner of the afternoon. So Kadire on with the leadoff walk. And now Daniel Murphy hitting 5th in the order today. A different batting order with Lucas Duda out. But Terry Collins has talked about hitting Murph more in the 6-hole. Rather than where he's been accustomed to hit in the 2-hole.
Well, interesting that Kadire never hit 300 at Minnesota. Of course, he hit in the high 290s. Went to Colorado and had, of course, the batting championship season where he hit 331 to lead the National League. And then last year, he only played in 49 games, but was hurt at a 332 batting average.
Had a shoulder injury, then came back a little too soon, suffered a hamstring injury, really collapsed Kadayer's season. I wonder, though, what the adjustment is for a hitter coming out of Coors Field after playing a couple of years there. Do you have to have a change in mindset? Or do you just accept that you're not going to hit 330 in a different ballpark?
Well, he hit 20 home runs the year that he led the league in hitting a few years ago. He's a line drive hitter. He's very disciplined. He's talked openly and has been quoted as saying that he never had an issue going road away. I always stayed disciplined. You're going to hit line drives that are going to go out of Coors Field.
Yeah, to me, though, Coors is not so much about the balls that go out. It's about all the space to get base hits.
If you hit line drives, nothing changes, you know?
It's also, though, I think why the splits happen sometimes. In Coors Field, you don't see that good hard-breaking ball. Kind of tumbles up there. So when they go on the road, now they start to see that sharp break. I think that's why the splits are so large.
Daniel Murphy coming off his first All-Star season. Hit .289 a year ago. A late swing foul.
Oh, boy, in the on-deck circle. That was Darno. That went around 10 feet over his head.
You know, it's interesting, Gary, you were asking about Murphy hitting down in the order. Terry Collins thinking about that. I think in the past, Murph is really, honestly, if he hadn't said it out loud, he's always preferred to hit second. But with Kadayer and others lengthening that lineup, he might fit a different place, and he's going to have to learn how to drive in runs.
Well, I've always been lobbying for, you got to keep the foot in.
The new speed-up rules in baseball. If you do not swing, you have to stay in the batter's box.
Need a little tightrope act there.
It's the initiative to try to improve the pace of games.
They're trying to shorten the length of the games.
Well, again, I don't think it's so much the length as the pace. And, you know, the question is, can you enforce rules like that when there's really no penalty? I mean, they're talking about $500 fines during the season, which, you know, for players making millions of dollars, I'm not sure that's a great incentive.
They said David Ortiz would have to do it 32,000 times to not make any money this year.
Exactly.
Which he might, you know. 3-2. And was hit by the pitch.
Ouch. Well, let's hope.
Now, we saw Hunter Pence yesterday get hit on the forearm, and that became a cruel blow for the Giants, who are going to lose Pence for 6 to 8 weeks. Not the thing you want in spring.
Oh, got him on the back of the hand, which is always a good spot to get hit. You never want to get hit on the wrist, on the ulnar side. The ulnar, oh my goodness, that hurts. But that's on the top of the hand and maybe towards the knuckles. It just hurts.
Like the back of the fingers?
I would, in spring training, I'd take him out. Take him out, get some ice on it, get an x-ray. No need to stay in.
Well, that's what they did the other day with Wilmer Flores. Flores got hit in the game at Disney on Wednesday, and they took him immediately out of the game. Wilmer was fine.
There's a macho part of it for the player, though. He doesn't want to leave the game after a pitcher hits him in the hand. He's like, you know what? I'm going to go do some damage on someone trying to turn two. As Price, you saw that right there? Price looked at Murphy and said, hey, my bad, didn't mean it. And the nod by Murphy. Very interesting.
So a walk and a hit by pitch, and the Mets have the first two men on for Travis d'Arnaud. Sporting that new number 7. Looks good on him.
Yeah.
Of course, I asked Travis why he opted for number 7. I said, you know, is it the number you wore before? He said, yeah, but more than that, it's a number I like. It's a good New York number. And boy, he's right about that.
Yeah, right. Ed Kranepool wore it for years. Hubie Brooks.
Jose Reyes. Mickey Mantle.
Hubie Brooks. Just thought I'd throw him in there.
It's very nice of you to start with Kranepool. I think that's a nice touch on your part.
Yes. I was thinking of the New York players first, but honestly, the player that came to mind for me, because he's a catcher, was Pudge Rodriguez.
Right. That's true. I mean, normally catchers don't wear single numbers, and if you remember, when Benito Santiago first came up, he wore number 9. Slowly hit Iglesias, a wizard with the glove, makes the quick flip and gets the force for the first out as Kadire moves over to third. So Santiago wore number 9, but because of the strap of the chest protector, it covers up the number. So he switched at one point in his career to 09, so that the strap would go between the numbers and he could see what number he was. I don't know whether Travis is eventually have to make that move.
No, I could see that happening because when I looked down and I couldn't see his number, and I said, boy, he was 15. How come I can't see his number? And it was. The strap was hiding the number 7.
Well, here's John Mayberry. And this is going to be Mayberry's role this year to face left-hand pitching. Former Philly, who played briefly in Toronto as well last year. His career numbers are much better against left-hand pitching than against right-handers. But yesterday, up in Vieira, he hit a home run against Max Scherzer in Scherzer's debut for the Nationals. A right-hander of note. $210 million worth of notes.
Gets paid till he's 44 years old.
And the Nationals have amassed themselves quite a starting rotation.
That they have. Scherzer to Strasburg to Zimmerman to Pfister to Gonzalez.
Gio's your 5th guy,
That's
and you can put
pretty good.
Roark in the bullpen.
Guy that won 15 games last year as a rookie. He's in the pen.
Well, to me, that's the one area that Washington's got to be a little nervous about without Tyler Clippard there anymore.
Agreed.
Maybe it's just us watching Clippard go through the Mets lineup, but boy, he was so valuable the last 4 or 5 seasons for that ball club.
Pitching the 7th and the 8th.
Yep. And outside of pitching, Mets they got rid of the Met killer, Adam LaRoche.
Mayberry swinging 3-0 and pops it up for Castellanos. And that's the second out. So Mayberry turned loose on 3-0 on March 6th. That didn't work. 2 out. Well, the Mets last year would have had a winning record, but for their travails against the Nationals. They were 4-15 against Washington, while they had a winning record against the other 3 teams in the division. Tim Melville is up in the Detroit bullpen. So 2 out, 1st and 3rd, and now Wilmer Flores. Flores is perfectly fine after getting hit on the hand on Wednesday. And it's been the subject of probably more discussion than any other phase of the Mets this offseason. The fact that the Mets opted not to look outside the organization and will begin the season, presumably, with Flores as their shortstop.
Got him.
Ooh, very close as Holiday throws behind Kadire at 3rd.
Took his eye off the ball. Very tricky.
Close enough to the bag to get the hand back in. You're not supposed to do that on spring training, are you?
That would be.
Holiday, of course, is the backup for the Tigers to Alex Avila. And Flores slices one out to right. And Avery puts it away. Mets threaten but don't score against David Price in the 2nd. Noah Syndergaard goes to the mound for the Mets in the 3rd.
This is heaven.
East, you know that this has been the frequent scene for most of the winter. And we don't mean to rub it in at all. The fact that it is a bit different here at Tradition Field, where the palm trees are flowing and the sunshine is creating a nice 80-degree comfortable afternoon. Well, Daniel Murphy got hit on the hand by a pitch, and the discretion being better part of valor, he comes out of the game, and Ruben Tejada will take over for Murphy at second base, and Noah Syndergaard will make his first appearance of the spring.
Well, you see his numbers from last year pitching in Las Vegas. Some ups and downs, of course. More hits than innings pitched. You usually don't see that with the big strapping right-hander with all that gas, 95 plus, but still in the learning process.
Daniel Fields, the DH, will lead off for the Tigers. And Fields takes a fastball away from Syndergaard. Fields, a Detroit native, trying to make it through the Tigers farm system. At just 224 at 3 levels last year, and it takes a strike. Well, Syndergaard will be the first to tell you that he was distracted at times last year, that there was so much conversation during the spring last year about it being inevitable that he'd be called up once the Super 2 deadline passed by, and that it got the best of him.
Well, I can say it happened to me, Gary. When I got traded to the Mets in '82, I went to AAA, and I was told by some, doesn't matter who they were, that, hey, do your job down here in AAA.
Mayberry in left field has it for the first out.
And you'll be called up. And when I wasn't called up in '82, I'm telling you, I hung my head. I was distraught that winter. I remember I asked my dad, I said, you know, I think it's time for graduate school. This might not be working out. He said, take your time. It's going to happen. They're not calling you up because you're not ready. When you're ready, you'll be called up. And we worked hard that winter, and it made a difference. But you can get your dauber down when you think things are going to happen and they don't.
Here's Andrew Romine playing second base today, former Angel. And he takes a strike.
Sage advice from your father.
That's usually the way it works.
Yeah. Thank you, Mr. Darling, if you're listening.
Change up from Syndergaard, and it's 1-1. Well, Noah, to his credit, appeared to have reined himself in the second half of last year. He got off Twitter and started concentrating more on pitching and not worrying about when he was going to get called up. And you know, the numbers got a little better, but I think more importantly, if you talk to a guy like Frank Viola, who watched Syndergaard the second half of the year, he grew up a little bit and learned a little bit about pitching in an adverse situation, which is what pitching in Las Vegas always is. Breaking ball in for a call, third strike. Good one done by Syndergaard for his first strikeout.
Nope. Very reminiscent, Keith, of the hammer by Matt Harvey.
Down and in, perfect spot. Goes.
So 2 out and nobody on.
Noah kind of gave the writers around here a couple days of story to run with.
You're always looking for stories. You got to have them.
Well, sometimes meals can be at ill-timed parts of the day.
I think what happens it's like having when you're a parent with your young kids, they test the limits, right? And I think that is brewed a couple times for Syndergaard as far as when you are a young pitcher, you have to follow the pack. When the game starts, you sit with everyone, you sit on the bench, you don't move until you're dismissed. And I think sometimes some pitchers feel a little bit of entitlement, and that's got to be shown to you that that's not the case until you're a big leaguer.
Yeah, and I think the other thing that needs to be said is, you know, Syndergaard, if you haven't heard the story, was back in the clubhouse eating lunch while the inter-squad game was going on Tuesday. David Wright saw him there, chastised him for it. Bobby Parnell threw his lunch in the trash. It's something that may have happened 100 times. Yeah. It just happened that the media was in the clubhouse, which happens during spring training. They were interviewing Zach Wheeler, who had come out of the game, and so there were media there to witness it, which is why it became a big story.
A back page story.
2-2 to Xavier Avery. And he punches one to short, and Flores picks it out of the air, didn't have to make the throw, and the side retired. So after Harvey went 6 up and 6 down, Syndergaard with a 1-2-3 inning. Live Mets baseball is back in 2015 with MLB.com at bat on your smartphone or tablet. Stay connected with live radio broadcasts, stats, breaking news, and more. Download MLB.com at bat, the #1 app for live baseball. I believe we just had the first Keith sigh of the year on the air.
Just because I had my first little bit of coffee. I got up at 6:30 today. I had to go to the chiropractor at 8, so I'd be here for the production meeting at 10.
I think that's very industrious to get yourself in perfect shape for the open.
So I'm a little tired, but I'm okay.
Anthony Recker is serving as the DH for today's game. Let's see. 36 spring training games, 162 regular season games.
I'll make it. Trust me. You can always count on me in July and August and September.
Making that big push. Recker, the backup to Travis d'Arnaud again this year, but Mets catching situation may shift as this year goes along. Iglesias runs it down and throws out Recker because Kevin Plawecki is looking very big league ready. And it's very interesting to look at what might happen as this season goes along when Plawecki is ready to come up to the big leagues.
You know, it's interesting because d'Arnaud's gotten most of the acclaim, but people forget that Plawecki has just moved so quickly through the system. College kid from Purdue, and you know, he's at the age where it's time to get his shot.
Now they'll play him a little bit at first base to get him some experience there. He played a few games in the minor leagues last year. Here's Juan Lagares taking a strike. Lagares flied out his first time up. And there's even a thought where somewhere down the road, maybe d'Arnaud plays a few games in the outfield. That might not happen this year, but maybe in future years. And so maybe you could figure out a way to squeeze both of those guys onto your roster.
You know, that's an interesting way to look at it, Gary, because they're always concerned about catching a catcher too much. It would be interesting if you had two talented guys and they split 75-75. That'd be something that's never been done.
Tim Melville on the mound, and Juan Lagares racing a base hit, and that's the first base hit for either side. So Lagares a one-out base runner.
Hanging slider, didn't get it out and down enough. Lagares hangs in there real well, goes the opposite field naturally. They're trying to get him to pull the ball. Started doing that a little more. Tried working with him on that last year. I was a little reluctant about that. Little baby steps. He'll eventually learn how to pull.
There's Granderson, who struck out looking against David Price's first time up. Price threw 2 hitless innings, although he walked and hit a batter and worked out of trouble in the second. Matt Harvey, 2 perfect innings for the Mets. Well, Lagares at first, and this is the other thing the Mets are looking for from Lagares, to use his speed a little more on the bases. When he was asked to do that late last season, he responded with a flurry. That one skips away from Holiday, and Lagares can cruise into second base on the wild pitch.
Yeah, Gary, I was saying to you, as we see the pitch here, breaking ball to Holiday. He's aware of the speed at first base, so he doesn't get down in front of it, tries to backhand it. Those are the things that will happen in spring because the game's just moving quickly.
We're talking about Lagares. He stole 13 bases last year, but 8 of them came in a 9-game span in late August and early September before his elbow shut him down for the year.
I was telling you before the game, the only time I've ever seen a guy not trying to pad his stats by stealing bases, but you know what happens with young players? They don't want to make a mistake. So late in the year when the Mets were out of it, they told him to go. Make sure you try to get a jump.
They even gave him some must-steal signs, which is I think a fairly rare call in baseball, telling a guy he has to run on a particular pitch.
And he showed that he has great. He explodes from his lead. He's got good first 2 steps.
Well, Tom Goodwin, the Mets' first base and outfield and base running coach, has done a great job with Lagares, just boosting his confidence in his ability to be a base stealer.
If you have the kind of quickness he has defensively, he's got to have it offensively too.
The old pitcher did not want to make the throw, and I agree with him there. Lagares did not have much of a lead.
Watching Iglesias move in behind Lagares. You know what was fun today during pregame drills? Watching Jose Iglesias, who's just a whiz with the glove, taking ground balls fungoed to him by Omar Vizquel. Wow. Talk about the passing of the torch. Vizquel, one of the greatest fielding shortstops ever. And Iglesias has made his share of highlight reels during his brief career.
Vizquel, probably the first shortstop I ever witnessed, didn't always use his glove to field the position. Was it Chris Bosio, the last out of that no-hitter? He barehanded the play.
He kind of played in the shadows of playing in Cleveland most of his career and just really didn't get. I mean, he got his credit, but
I think the one thing that hurt Omar was that he played a lot of his career in the shadow of Ozzie Smith.
Yeah. Well, Ozzie would. It's very tough to upstage Ozzie.
But Omar played till he was 44 and put together some pretty good offensive numbers to go with his defensive wizardry, to the point where he is going to be a legitimate Hall of Fame candidate.
Granderson punches one the other way. He's got a base hit. Lagares being waved home. They'll score without a throw, and the Mets have a 1-0 lead. So Granderson taking one the other way drives in the first run of the afternoon.
Well, you like to see that. Curtis was a dead pull hitter last year, and I think because of coming from Yankee Stadium. Remember, he had the 40 home runs, and that short porch became more of a pull hitter. And if you recall, Ronnie, you do, I know that, and Gary, he used a little more left center field when he first came up, like everybody else.
You know what I love about that? Iglesias, you mentioned it, Gary, was spending so much of his time holding Lagares close. He opened up that entire hole.
Here's David Wright with Granderson at first and 1 out. David went down looking his first time up. Well, you know, the Mets play 3 games at Yankee Stadium in April this year. So, you know, Granderson has a chance to reacquaint himself with the cozy dimensions there. It's a little different schedule between the Mets and the Yankees. It's great marketing because, you know, April and September are generally not the easiest months to sell tickets. So the Mets are playing at Yankee Stadium in April, and the Yankees come to Citi Field in September.
It is the first games that the Mets will play out of division. They start the season and I think play the first 25 games in division in April.
And it kind of extends that,
which I like,
homestand, if you know what I mean, still playing in New York.
Yep. Well, the Mets open the season in Washington and Atlanta, come home to play the Phillies and the Marlins and the Braves before that series in the Bronx. Double play ball right at Iglesias, and Romine makes the turn for the easy 6-4-3 to end the inning, but the Mets cash a run as Granderson drives in Lagares. 1-0 Mets after 3. And Adam Shine will have all the latest news from Mets and Yankees spring trading with insider info and exclusive interviews straight from camp on Loudmouths, presented by Caesars Atlantic City today at 5:30, only on SNY. Well, between Matt Harvey and Noah Syndergaard, they've gone perfectly through the Tigers the first 3 innings. So Anthony Goes, the leadoff hitter, starts the 4th. Goes struck out against Harvey to open the afternoon, and Harvey proceeded to retire the Tigers 6 up and 6 down with 3 strikeouts, and was about as impressive as you could have asked. Tigers pick up their first base runner as Goes takes one the other way for a leadoff hit.
Good hitting right there. A little above the belt. Look how level the swing went, right with the pitch, up and away.
So here's Iglesias, who had his bat shattered by Harvey his first time up, and then a comebacker. And joining us from the Mets dugout is the aforementioned Matt Harvey. Matt, Gary, Keith, and Ron up in the booth. So what did you think?
It was good. It was. I think the first inning I was not really nervous. The second inning, for some reason, I went out and started shaking a little bit.
3-2 hammer on March 6th. Are you kidding me?
Yeah, I know. I was feeling it, so I had to drop it in.
You had the good breaking ball working. You had to go over the top curveball, the first strikeout on the left-hand hitter on the back door. Is that a nice weapon for you? You like to use against the lefties?
Yeah, no, it's oh boy.
Bullet into the crowd.
Looks like everyone's all right. Ooh, always afraid.
Matt, I know this whole thing is a progression of going through all the rehab that you did and getting your arm in shape and then throwing off the mound and facing hitters. But to be in competition against another team, what does that feel like when you haven't done it in 18 months?
It was great. I mean, obviously this is the team I faced when things started crumbling, I guess you could say. So for me, facing them and being out here was great. And it's obviously the biggest step so far, and I'm happy things felt the way they did, and was able to tack these on.
Hey, Matt, I never had to go through it, but was there a lot of soul-searching over those months while you were rehabbing and not being able to do what you love to do?
Yeah, it was tough. I mean, I love being out here, and doing what I do on the mound is something special and something I'll always absolutely love doing. And, for me, not being able to do that is just very tough at times.
Goes first to third on the errant pickoff throw.
Actually, Garrett's going to be an E3 here. That's just missed by Kadire.
Matt, did you notice that when you were warming up in the bullpen before the game that your entire pitching staff was grouped behind you?
No.
Or were you too focused to notice that?
No, I had no idea. I was a little afraid of throwing one behind Travis, who was catching me in there. There was about.
Watching you warm up, what does that mean exactly?
Everything's been really great. I mean, these guys have been so supportive and showing me so much, confidence and a lot of praise for being back. And I hope that they were able to see how much work was put in and how tough it was to not play and how much I really wanted to be out there with these guys.
You know what's interesting, Matt? You're such a test case because of the length of time you had between the surgery and getting back on the mound. Is there anything post-pitching that you would do differently than 2 or 3 seasons ago as far as ice or band work or anything that you would do?
I think the main thing to look at was in between starts. I think I was just throwing a little bit too much, a little too hard in my bullpens, maybe a little bit too long of bullpens. So I think as the season goes, as the season goes on and the innings build up, I think the big thing is really toning down the bullpens.
There's been so much conversation, Matt, about how you're going to be used this year in terms of keeping your inning total to whatever number it is that they eventually figure out is right for you. As Iglesias is safe at second. When you look ahead and think about starts during the season where you might be asked to come out after 5 or come out after 6 when you still have something left in the tank, have you adjusted your mindset and wrapped your brain around being able to do that and being able to accept that?
Yeah, I think I was joking around with TC a little bit when I came out after the second and asked him if I could go a couple more. So, no, but I understand the process, and there's going to be situations where, every pitcher's not going to want to come out, and that's ultimately their decision, and they're looking out for the best for me and for the organization. So, when it comes to that stuff, as tough as it's going to be at times, always health is always the main factor.
Well, Matt, congratulations on a successful return today, and good luck as these outings pile up.
Oh, thank you. Very good.
All right, Matt Harvey, after 2 perfect innings today.
For a strike. I think he didn't throw any changeups, but other than that, the slider was good. Maybe one changeup. Keith, to your point, great hammer and threw the ball 99 miles an hour at some point. So. Can't get any better.
Meanwhile, the Tigers have tied up the game against Noah Syndergaard. And Rajay Davis has to vacate on ball 4. And so Syndergaard, who had a 1-2-3 third, running into some trouble here in the 4th.
It's interesting to watch Syndergaard here because he looks, and we were talking about the maturity for Noah, is that he looks a little rattled here. Davis taking the pitch all the way, almost hit by it. That ball that he threw to Kadire, that should have been an easy play for Michael. He doesn't make the play at first. The runner goes around and gives up a hit to score a run. These are the maturity things you have to deal with as a pitcher. And you get better at it as you relax in these instances and not kind of get all hyped up.
Now, the stories we heard last year were that when Syndergaard would get in trouble, he'd become a one-pitch pitcher. And how do you get out of that mindset where all you want to do is throw the ball through a wall?
Well, it was Bob Apodaca, who pitched for the Mets, great pitching coach in his own right. He called it caveman pitching. Get ball, throw ball hard. And I think that happens to a lot of pitchers when they're young and they haven't fully matured. They want to throw the ball by hitters instead of pitching, not throwing.
Infield fly rule will be called, and Kadire squeezes that, and Castellanos is retired for the first down. Now, how much of a role can a pitching coach or a catcher play in trying to change that mentality?
Well, I think the greatest thing that's going to happen for Noah is that he's going to spend some more time with Frankie V. And there's Danny Worthen, who's done a great job here. Frankie V in AAA. Frankie V was the consummate pitcher, if there ever was one. A guy who could move the ball in and out, and when he got into trouble, he would go soft instead of trying to overthrow it. All of those things. Now, he didn't have the tools that Noah has, Frankie, but Frankie was the consummate pitcher, and I think all of those talents that Frank has are going to translate to Noah at some point.
Of course, Frankie had the great changeup that he learned from Johnny Padres, right. And Syndergaard's changeup is still a developing pitch, his third pitch.
And you know, Ron, when you came up, you were a thrower that first year.
True.
You first 2 years, you were a thrower, and all of a sudden, the third year, you blossomed into a pitcher.
What happens is that I think when you're young, you're a thrower because you don't have confidence. You know, you want to try to rush your way through tough times instead of pitch your way through them. That comes with confidence.
Jordan Leonardson at the plate. Syndergaard misses high, 1-1.
Now, when I'm watching the Detroit Tigers on the bases, Iglesias is taking a huge lead. It's almost like they're trying to put pressure on the young pitcher. You know, it's not all about pitching, although it's 90%, but you've got to be able to field your position, hold runners on. A lot of little things that you learn in your minor league innings before you come to the big leagues.
Running game was a concern for Syndergaard last year. Of course, Doc Gooden had trouble with the running game.
When there were people on.
Didn't happen very often.
You know, Dwight did not have that great a move. It was quick, but he wasn't going to pick anybody off.
His thing was he had a high leg kick for a guy out of a set position.
Well, remember they eventually moved his hands up, which I thought didn't help him in terms of his pitching. It didn't help in the running game anyway.
I don't know. That's like fooling around with Yo-Yo Ma. I mean, you just kind of leave it alone.
I remember Whitey Herzog came up to me after Dwight's first year, and remember Mel started working on a cutter with him, and the first time the Cardinals faced him, Whitey's going, why would you want to add a third pitch? The two are perfectly fine.
Now Syndergaard ahead 1-2 with 2 on and 1 out. '95 upstairs, 2-2. Syndergaard just 22 years old.
He's been up with his fastball. That's what's been his got him in trouble in this inning.
And that one sails through the glove of Darno, and the runners move up. Pitch was high, but looked like one that Travis should have snagged.
I would rule it a pass ball, but we'll see.
Well, it's an area where Travis had trouble last year. Led the league in pass balls. So now 2 in scoring position for the Tigers. And a spot where Syndergaard would like to get a strikeout.
And unlike Harvey, who has that maturity, he could drop the 3-2 hook. I don't think that Syndergaard's there, so predictability, probably a fastball.
And he did throw the fastball and missed with it, and now the bases are loaded. Second walk of the inning for Syndergaard. Sean Gilmartin gets up in the Mets bullpen. He'll be next in behind Syndergaard, and certainly the plan is for that to be in the 5th. But Syndergaard's pitch count beginning to rise. He's already thrown 32 pitches in an inning and a third. I wouldn't think they'd want to go much past 35 or 40.
Yeah, and what Dan Warthen also is doing is going out to talk to Syndergaard to get him calmed down, but even more, not more importantly, but to make sure that Gilmartin gets loose, because what you want to do as a team when you're trying a left-hander to maybe make your team is have him come in and face a left-hander in a crucial situation. Not a crucial situation, but with people on base.
Well, what he needs right now is a double play, and he'll go in with only giving up 1 run.
Been hurt by an error on Kadire, a pass ball on Darno, but he's hurt himself with a couple of walks. A run is in, bases loaded, 1 out. Ryan Holiday was victimized by Matt Harvey his first time up. That was that 3-2 curveball that froze him. Pitches in this inning already for Syndergaard. Center field, tagging at third is Iglesias, and Lagares, who has not been testing his arm this spring, makes the toss into the cutoff man. It's a sacrifice fly for Holiday, and the Tigers go in front 2-1.
Well, I was just going to mention right there that the head outfielders were playing awfully shallow. Lagares always likes to play shallow. You see, he's backpedaling here. He's not going to get much on a throw. And there's a sign of maturation right there from Lagares, who likes to show off his arm. He knows immediately, because he's backpedaling, he has no shot at home plate, no shot at third base. Keep the runner at first, keep a first and third open here for a force play.
I was talking with Juan before the game today. Remember, he was shut down last year with a couple of weeks to go in the season because he had some soreness in his elbow, and he didn't play winter ball. He spent a couple of months down here in the Mike Barwis boot camp. But he really has not tested his elbow yet. He hasn't cut it loose, and he's trying to go slow, and you know, he'll make throws if he has to, but it's something he'd rather wait on. And I wonder whether at some point he has to cut it loose in spring training just to give himself the confidence he can do it.
I think it's a building process, just like a pitcher, though, for Lagares. It's just such a valuable arm defensively for this team that you don't need to make any throws here. There's no reason to. But you're right. By the last week, you want to be able to start letting it go.
Got a lot of spring training left.
Yeah.
Don't want to rush anything.
Daniel Fields at the plate, flied out his first time up. First and third, 2 out.
Well, they got you down here in January for the boot camp, and you're playing.
I said, no, I run in the park, in Central Park. And I stretch.
Fields gets jammed. 93 on the hands from Syndergaard.
Well, I didn't think this hit Fields, but I guess it did in the foot. Really pushing the limits here of Syndergaard.
He's at 38 pitches now. He threw 12 in the third inning, 26 already in this inning. Two. And he came inside.
You know, we always talk about pitch counts and, you know, how to judge them. Well, these pitches in this inning, most of them have been under duress. People on base, heavy breathing by Syndergaard as he's trying to work his way through this inning.
2-2, and the breaking ball fouled off. So after he got done with us, Matt Harvey went inside to talk to the writers, not in the locker room, but in the press conference room in spring training. You ever hear that before?
Nope. But they're I mean, the most people I've seen press at a spring training game in quite some time.
And there were some who planned to be here today and couldn't get here because of the weather in New York yesterday and the problems at LaGuardia.
This is how bad I've fallen. 25 years ago, I was on the mound here at Tradition Field trying to get some outs. Now I've got to expense an $8 meal that I couldn't even get to because there were so many press people in there. That's how bad it's gotten for me.
Gee, I'm glad you told me that, Ron.
Syndergaard broke Fields' bat on that last pitch, so he's coming back with a new one. By the way, the meal was fantastic, Ryan. Some of us know how to shove to the front of the line.
You couldn't get in there.
You know, if you'd grown up in New York, you would have known.
You got that New York in you.
This will be the 8th pitch of the at-bat from Syndergaard to Fields. And then he comes inside and is fouled off.
It was interesting. Dave Dombrowski, the general manager of the Tigers, was here with Jimmy Leland. And really, it's the mash unit for them that they're worried about. When Victor Martinez and Miguel Cabrera are going to be ready to go.
Well, Cabrera they knew was going to be a slow issue in spring training, coming off ankle and foot issues. Victor's injury kind of caught them by surprise. Victor Martinez was playing catch with his brother in the street in early February and tore his meniscus in his knee.
Wonderful.
Well, those are two of the best hitters on the planet, and they should be ready, if not for opening day, then shortly thereafter. Good looking curveball to get Fields looking. There's that 3-2 curveball you were looking for. Second strikeout for Syndergaard as he puts the inning to bed after the Tigers get a pair. Presented by Citi. Terrible news for the Giants. Hunter Pence hit by a pitch. Out 6 to 8 weeks with a broken forearm. Clayton Kershaw, that's with an H in the middle. It's not October anymore, so he's right back in form. And Max Scherzer didn't mention in Scherzer's line there that he gave up a home run to John Mayberry last night in Vieira, but he did strike out a couple.
We got all these new gadgets. Spell check not working.
Not yet. Hey, you know what? It's spring training for our graphics guy too.
It's funnier that way. We should have one misspelling per spring training game. See if we can discover it.
Be like Catch Max.
Yes.
Jerry's Familia up in the Mets bullpen as Michael Kadire leads off against Tim Melville. And hits it right at the second baseman Romine. Had him positioned perfectly. One away. A Tigers team that shifted less than any other American League team last year.
It's interesting because Brad Ausmus, the manager, always a great baseball guy that believes not only in the playing of the game but also the analytics of the game. But with that pitching staff at times, maybe you don't need to. But Scherzer and Porcello, who they've both lost, they've added what? Alfredo Simon and Shane Green from the Yankees.
I believe the Astros and the Pirates were the two teams that used the shift the most.
Well, there's been a lot of conversation this spring, and some of it in the wake of comments that Sandy Alderson made, because he intimated that there was a Met pitcher who didn't like the shift, and then Zach Wheeler owned up to him being the guy, about the balance between using the macro data that you have on hitters to position your fielders versus going by what the pitchers feel is best for their individual stuff. And how you strike the balance between those two things.
Well, think of it this way. If I'm Zach Wheeler and I get to a 2-1 count and we're in a shift against Freddie Freeman, it's better for me, 2-1, to throw a changeup or breaking ball to Freeman than it is to go with my good hard fastball. Why? Because he's more apt to pull that pitch. If he pulls that pitch, we have more people playing on that side of the diamond, a better chance of getting him out. So I can see where Zach's coming from, because he's saying, boy, now you've almost taken my best pitch out of play on a 2-1 count. You know what I'm saying? It's an interesting way of thinking of things.
Ruben Tejada batting for the first time, took over from Murphy, was hit on the hand, and he checks his swing and stopped it in time, 3-2. But it's interesting as the notion of shifting evolves. You know, as I said, you have macro data on hitters as to where their tendencies are to hit the ball, but what about more micro data in terms of how they hit against certain pitches in certain counts against certain pitchers? You don't want to be moving your players all over the field pitch by pitch, because now you're giving away pitch type and location, right?
Yes. My feeling also, too, is we all know that Zach is one of the hardest throwers in the league. Not too many guys can throw it as hard as him. Is that thrown into one big jumble? You're going to add all what Freddie Freeman hits against right-handers. Does that include an 88-mile-an-hour soft tosser?
Right.
You know, I would more want to gather the data, and I'm sure they do, how they hit off of Zach Wheeler.
And maybe other pitchers who have his kind of
his
stuff.
ilk, yeah.
2 out and nobody on. Now Travis d'Arnaud, who hit into a fielder's choice his first time up.
My problem is when you get the real good hitter, and I guess I'm using Freddie Freeman, we all are here. You get the real good hitter, okay? And you got a shift on him, and you got a guy on second base with 2 outs. The real good hitter.
Nice backhand play in the hole. And d'Arnaud is retired to end the inning. That's not Iglesias. That's Hernan Perez, who took over at short and looked like Iglesias, making a great backhand play. Welcome to the game, Hernan. As we go to the 5th inning, Eric Campbell comes in to play first base. Danny Muno is now at third. Matt Dendecker comes in to play right field. And Jeurys Familia will come out of the bullpen and be the third Met pitcher of the day.
Well, look at that microscopic ERA in 76 games. And I think one of the themes that sometimes is missed from last season is how good the bullpen got and how better the arms got in that bullpen. And Familia was a big part of that.
76 games last year. That's a Mets rookie record that had stood all the way from 2013. When Scott Rice had been in 73 games as a rookie. It's Josh Side, the next man up in the Tigers bullpen, as Andrew Romine leads off the 5th inning. Romine struck out his first time up against Noah Syndergaard, who had a very good 3rd inning and a rougher 4th. Gave up 2 runs and 2 hits, a couple of walks, 2 strikeouts after Matt Harvey went perfectly through the first 2. And the sinker from Familia for strike 1. Familia, who's had trouble throwing the bases, has trouble on that one and bounces it past Campbell. Now, this is a piece that Familia has got to work on, and he's been working hard at it, but his throws to bases have often been a big problem.
Well, he does everything fine there as far as getting to it and backhanded. He kind of bobbled on his way there, but just then spikes the throw. I think part of it, when I watch him play, is that he's an athletic guy. Somehow it's in between his ears right now.
I agree.
And when it happens like that,
he's a very conscientious young man.
Yep.
And I know that when he stumbled, that was the end of it right there. He just rushed the throw.
Here's Xavier Avery, who had a soft liner to short his first time up. Well, let me ask you this. Okay. There's been a lot of conversation about who ultimately will be the closer for this team. You've got Bobby Parnell coming back from basically a year on the sidelines. He is going to pitch in a game next week and should be, if not ready for opening day, then shortly thereafter. And he was the closer and very successful at it 2 years ago. You have Henry Mejia, who took the job last year after beginning the year in the rotation and had a lot of success. And then you've got Familia, who might have the best stuff of all of them. The runner goes, and it's drilled into right, a base hit for Avery. And the Tigers have runners at first and third.
I don't believe this was a hit and run. I didn't see the runner peek back. Nice hitting right there, and the fastball up, out over the plate.
So there are many in the organization and outside the organization who would advocate for eventually Familia becoming the closer. Would his difficulties in terms of throwing to bases make you less inclined to have him be the closer?
You know, Gary, that's a great question. More and more pitchers today know how to throw it from 60 feet 6 inches, but the rest of the athletic game of fielding their position is sometimes lost. I don't know why that is. The closer, or one of the closers for the Yankees, is going to be Dellin Betances. Maybe Andrew Miller's going to close some games also. Well, Dellin Betances has a little bit of that also. You can look almost on every single team around baseball and see the relief pitchers who have trouble throwing to bases.
Well, when you get to the 9th inning, very often a bunt is in order in a close game. So I would have to think it would give you pause to put the guy who's dealing with that difficulty in that spot.
I think it would definitely hurt your chances. But good throw.
Pick off by Familia, and he gets Avery. With runners at first and third, Avery gets picked off first.
Well, the Tigers, he was running and got caught. The Tigers have been showing a lot of aggressiveness on the bases. This would have been the 3rd attempt to steal a base in this game. We're only in the top of the 5th inning.
You know, they took away the old 3rd to 1st move last year. Avery 3rd to 1st himself. So 1 out, the infield comes in. 1-0 the count on Anthony goes, and he takes up and away.
You know, even though Familia, Garrett, and I'm going to step in on your question, it wouldn't affect me, my decision. If Familia's ready to close, it wouldn't bother me that he has throwing problems.
Sure, if you were playing first base, then it wouldn't be a problem.
Thank you. Appreciate that.
And Familia busts him inside 3-0.
You know what I would do, because obviously throwing to the bases on that pickoff is not a problem. So throwing to the bases when he has to field the ball seems to be the issue. And walking a batter intentionally was a little bit of a problem last year also.
And Ronnie, is the throwing to bases part as much about the footwork and the crow hop and that whole rhythmic thing as the actual throwing itself?
Yeah, absolutely. There's really two things that I would do. And it wouldn't be pitcher's fielding practice, because if it's between your ears, you're just almost putting him on display, exacerbating the problem. I would make sure that every single batting practice, he went to center, left, or right field and fielded every ball off the bat, fly ball, crow hop, make the throw in. Every ground ball, come up as an athlete, crow hop, throw the ball, and hit the net. There's usually a net behind second base. I would make him do that every batting practice, and I wouldn't exacerbate the problem by isolating him on a field by himself, having to do the drills, because it only makes it worse.
That's great. Great idea. Some of the view from the backfield. Guys getting work in. 3-2 to goes, and it's upstairs for ball 4. And so again, the Tigers have runners at first and third.
Well, the one thing that Familia that I noticed last year, and he had a terrific year, Ron, is that, you know, he comes in, most relievers come in and start the inning. Terry brought him in a couple times with men on base, and he threw a wild pitch. Took him a while to find a rhythm, and I think it's because they're not. This is my feeling. They're so used to coming in, starting an inning. It's a whole different ball of wax when you're coming in the middle of an inning, late in the game, with the tying runs or protecting a 1-run lead or a 2-run lead. That's what he needs to improve on if they're in fact going to be doing that with him.
Hernan Perez up for the first time, and takes a wild cut of the slider.
But as far as I'm concerned, you know, Mejia did a terrific job last year. And I think it's his job to lose. That's my feeling. Yeah. I mean, he came and he didn't start out there. They moved him in.
No, he was in the rotation.
Absolutely. And he just moved right in. I thought he did a terrific job. He's one Rolaids. You got to go to the bathroom and get a Rolaids. But he got it done.
Broken bat. Campbell's not going to get there. And Perez will have to find new lumber. Get to Citi Field in 2015 for Free Shirt Fridays. All fans in attendance receive an exclusive Mets-themed T-shirt at each Friday home game. For tickets, visit Mets.com/FreeShirtFridays. Familia up in the count on Perez, 0-2. Hernan Perez, a very highly regarded young player with the Tigers, but right now blocked. Got Ian Kinsler at second and Jose Iglesias at short, and then it's basically no room at the end. What do you do? I know what every Met fan is saying right now, but hold that off for a moment. It's the 0-2, low and away, 1 ball, 2 strikes.
Especially for Iglesias, who didn't play all last year. You have to have Perez around as insurance.
Well, Iglesias' glove is right at the top of the charts in the major leagues right now, whether and how much he's going to hit. You know, 2 years ago, he was second in the Rookie of the Year ballot. He hit over 300. So, but I think that was a surprise to some people as Perez fouls it off. The question is, can Iglesias reproduce that offensively?
It's interesting to watch this Tiger team that usually is a bloop and a blast kind of team, trying to steal bases and taking the extra base.
Got a little different team on the field today.
Exactly.
Miggy in the middle of the lineup.
You're talking the first week of spring training. We're basically into the third game of spring training for most teams. And you never used to see guys stealing bases this early.
And Familia busts Perez inside and gets his first strikeout. 2 out.
This is the big separator for Familia. That sinker that he throws, that just like a bowling ball disappears in the glove of Darno. Just ate up Perez.
So 2 out. Runner still at first and third, and now Rajai Davis, who's grounded out and walked 0 for 1. We just got medical word on Daniel Murphy, who was hit on the hand by a pitch. He has a contusion on his right hand. That's a bruise in layman's terms. If you can be concussed when you have a concussion, can you be contused if you have a contusion?
Contused, I guess it's not a word, but it should be one.
You just made it one.
We could be in the New York Times, right, where they make up a word there that should be a word, but it's not.
I think Gary's confused.
Travis d'Arnaud getting whacked by that last foul ball. He's had his share of those.
It's something that we see more and more frequency in today's game, that backswing.
I remember he got hit last year and it cost him some time with a concussion. And he was concerned that Travis was setting up a little bit too close to the hitter, and that might be part of the issue.
And you can't move back to avoid it. You've got to stay in the front lines. So it's a occupational hazard.
The hard part is they spend so much time on not having collisions at home plate to stop concussions. Really, the concussions now are coming from the backswing of the hitter or the foul tips right in the mask. That is going to, research and development is going to have to do a better job at getting better masks.
Without question.
Or maybe soften the balls up a little bit. Don't lace them up so tight.
You don't really mean that, do you?
No.
Slowly hit. It's going to be a tough play from Muno. Can't make it, and a run comes home. 3-1 Detroit. So Rajai Davis with a little check swing roller drives in a run.
Well, Familia 1 out from pitching out of this jam, and a very unfortunate bleeder right there.
So a run is in. Goes at second and Davis at first. And now Nick Castellanos bats for the third time. He's flied out and popped up.
Castellanos was just lost last year in the Rookie of the Year talk because Jose Abreu was so great. Masahiro Tanaka was great for the time he pitched. But he had a fine season for a young player.
11 home runs, 66 driven in, hit .259. He's just 23 years old. No relation to the Mets Castellanos. Alex Castellanos, who is bidding for a spot with the Mets. They were both born in Florida, but no relation.
I like that they both have the same pronunciation, right?
The real pronunciation.
Exactly.
Dendecker into shallow right. Puts it away, and that retires the side. Tigers cash an unearned run and lead at 3-1. Hey, we're halfway through, Keith. Today in the Mets' first home game of the spring, Matt Harvey's return to action after 18 months away from competition. And he was the goods. 25 pitches in 2 innings, 6 up, 6 down, 3 strikeouts, a couple of broken bats. Harvey was everything that he and everybody else could have asked for, and it was worthy of a smile as Matt turned in 2 perfect innings in his return to the mound.
Who knows what the future is going to bring, but there's something different when he's on the mound. Hard to explain.
Josh Zide will be the 3rd pitcher for the Tigers. Henry Mejia will be the next man up for the Mets.
Henry's got the Harpo marks working, doesn't he?
Is that how you describe that?
What is that?
I think it's unique. John Mayberry pulls one foul.
I'm not anti. It's just.
Can we get another look at that?
Well, you'll see plenty of Henry's hair as the year goes along. It's more Oscar Gamble.
Yes, it is. Good call.
Except the hat's got to be a little higher on top.
Well, it's a different era, you know. Romine has it go off his glove, and Mayberry is aboard. Takes a turn. It'll hold on there as Goes runs it down. I don't think Romine had any chance to throw him out anyway. But Mayberry is aboard with what should be scored a base hit.
Got to be inclined to agree with Gare.
And the official scorer, yes, we do have an official scorer, concurs. Here's Wilmer Flores, who flied out and is only at bat.
We saw the game started by Matt Harvey, a Connecticut pitcher. Josh Zide is another kid from Connecticut, born in New Haven, Hamden Hall Country Day School.
Here's your Land Rover 5th inning recap. Matt Harvey started it and did everything he could have been asked to do. Noah Syndergaard had a good 3rd inning, a shakier 4th, and the Tigers have a 3-1 lead. And Zide bounces one, 2-1 to Flores. And Flores, it's a rocket into left. And the Mets have the first 2 men on to the 5th. New York Mets baseball on SNY is brought to you by Land Rover. Visit your local certified pre-owned Land Rover tri-state retailer. By Verizon Fios. Only Verizon Fios comes with Speed Match. Upload speeds as fast as you download speeds. By Geico, 15 minutes can save you 15% or more on car insurance. Visit geico.com for a free rate quote. And by your local Lexus dealer and their pursuit of perfection. A packed berm. The rest of this ballpark is packed as well. As many folks as they could stuff in here today for the Mets' first home game of the spring.
I think a lot of enthusiasm by Met fans. The Tigers always have a good fan base that follows them around in spring training. Matt Harvey, of course, the headliner.
Anthony Recker batting with 2 men on. And Zide falls behind him 2-0. Well, I think that Matt Harvey is certainly the main attraction today. But I think that throughout the Mets fan base, there's a hopefulness that we haven't seen in a few years. There's an understanding that it's not just Matt Harvey, that the Mets have built themselves a young pitching staff that might be capable of winning a game on any given day.
I think that's where the excitement comes. Is, you know, you saw the Mets won, what, 79 games last year? Saw a team get to the 7th game against the Giants last year after winning 89 games, the Kansas City Royals. So it's not a stretch to get that second wild card berth. And then you and I were talking about it before, Gary. Once you get into the postseason, it's a lot of fortune and luck to get through all those series.
And pitching helps.
Yeah.
And it's fine to go into a season saying, you know, we have a pretty good starting rotation, we have a pretty good bullpen. It's another thing to have that 6th, 7th, 8th, 9th starting pitcher for when guys inevitably have to miss time.
Well, the Mets certainly have a surplus right now with Dylan G.
Well, certainly if the season began today, G would be the odd man out of the rotation, which leads people to think that maybe he'll get traded before opening day. But there's no reason to think that it might not be somebody else who gets traded if the Mets could get a better return that way and rejigger their rotation in some other fashion.
Well, also you'll see here in spring training what you need. You might need something on your bench or in the bullpen.
Double play ball, but it bounces right to Romine, and they're able to turn 2. Well, that is a fortuitous carom off the glove of Perez.
Oh, Gary, come on. Seen it a million times. He had it planned. Look at this, folks. Wow.
There's a game that big leaguers play. They call it flip. Well, they'll flip the ball back and forth to each other just using their glove. And that's exactly, not on purpose, how Perez made that play.
So here's my question. Okay, you're the folks at SNY or the MLB Network or ESPN or whoever, and you're putting together your compilations. Is that on the highlight reel or the blooper reel?
Highlight.
It's on my blooper reel.
See? 50-50. That's why we have the two of you here. Here's Lagares up in the 3rd time at a base hit and scored the only Met run in the 3rd.
Well, here are those 2-out RBIs that are so critical. Things you look for in a hitter.
Omar Duran, the lefty up in the Tigers bullpen.
Nice cut by Juan.
Got to be heads up here when you come to the ballpark for foul balls, right? Get on you in a hurry.
Josh Seid, who began his college career at Vanderbilt, but then transferred to Tulane. Connecticut kid who liked it further south.
That's right.
The Big Easy.
Dendecker would be next. Good stop by Holiday to keep Mayberry at 3rd.
Very nice play.
Remember earlier in the game we were talking about Brian Holiday kind of backhanding a play? Well, certainly not here. Perfect form.
Well done.
Brad Ausmus, a catcher in his major league career, appreciating that. Two coming to Lagares, and another stop by Holiday.
Jeez.
That's around 55 feet right there.
Bowling for dollars. Another beautiful play. That's not an easy chance right there.
Gary, another young catcher with not a lot of with no experience as a manager, Kevin Cash, got a job this year for the Tampa Bay Rays.
It's a very different feeling there, I'm sure, with Joe Madden no longer on hand.
And a very different feeling with Joe Madden on hand in Cubland. They got to go into this season with a lot of optimism.
You could make the argument that he was the best free agent signing all winter.
That may be, but you know they've still got a lot. People are saying that the Cubs are going to be a winning team this year. They've got a lot to prove.
Yeah, but they've come. They're coming. They are coming.
I mean, Rizzo's an elite player. But the rest of that lineup was ball 4, and Lagares is on with the walk. Second walk already that Lagares has drawn this spring, and it's something that the Mets are hoping that he'll do more of.
Well, not a complete player, but Castro almost has 1,000 hits as a young player. But I know what you're saying, Jack. You know, the Mets have all this young pitching. The Cubs have all this young everyday players, including Chris Bryant, who might not even make the team out of spring training. But they might be a year behind the Mets.
Alex Castellanos running for Lagares at first base. So it is now a 2 Castellanos afternoon. First and third, 2 out, and Matt Dendecker bats for the first time. That's good. Sinker by Zide, 0-1. This is an awkward spring for Dendecker in some ways. He came on so well late last season, really learned how to make contact at the plate. You know all about his defense. But because Kirk Neuenhuis is out of options and Dendecker still has an option, he has almost no chance to make the team out of spring training.
Well, remember last year Dendecker was leading the league in hitting and came up red hot and opened up in Philadelphia and had that terrific series against the Phillies. And then kind of slowed down a peg, and I just wish they'd have played him a little more, give him a little more of a shot, because when he was in there, his speed at the top of the order really kind of electrified the team.
Well, the most important thing is that he almost completely shifted the dial as far as his contact was concerned. He was a guy who struck out a ton and hit some home runs, and he became more of a singles hitter, but a guy who was putting the ball in play regularly.
Well, he could be a doubles hitter. And remember the big change he made, he lowered his hands. As you can see, folks on TV, he had his hands a lot higher and now holds them down around his waist.
But this is, you know, this is an important year for the Dendeckers and Neuenhuis. They both turned 28 this year. So, you know, gone is the time when you're the up-and-coming prospect, and now you're just trying to figure out what your long-term role is going to be, if at all, in the major leagues.
You know, our fans tend to forget at home there's the game of playing baseball and there's the business of baseball. And being able to be sent down is a bad reality in spring training for a guy like Dendecker.
Castellanos, who's got some speed, leading at first, Mayberry at third. And Dendecker fouls it back. And, you know, you think about the fates of baseball. You go back to 2 years ago this week. Matt Dendecker was the flavor of the month. He was making great catches all over Florida. He looked like he was going to be the next best thing. He could have been Juan Lagares, but he broke his wrist late in spring training. Lagares got the chance, and Dendecker got shuffled further back in the pecking order.
Well,
another good stop by Holiday. Castellanos is picked off first to end the inning. Holiday turning in a tremendous inning, stopping balls in the dirt, and to boot, manages to pick off Castellanos to get his pitcher through the inning. So the Mets 2 hits and a walk in that inning. They can't score. It's still 3-1. Jorge Carrillo comes in to catch. Matt Dendecker moves from right field to center field. Alex Castellanos in to play right field after pinch running, and Henry Mejia will pitch the top of the 6th.
You're right, Keith. Started as a starting pitcher last year, took to the bullpen. See his numbers. 28 out of 31 saves. Pretty darn good.
In fact, he had 18 saves after the All-Star break, which tied for second in the National League. So, I mean, he had clearly took the job and ran with it. But as Keith alluded to, probably too many base runners to survive over the long term, and the question is, can he reduce that? Well, he starts off this outing by giving up a base hit. And I wonder, Ronnie, from your perspective, is that something you just have to live through with certain pitchers, or is it the sort of Damocles kind of hanging over you that if you're going to have that high whip, walks and hits per innings pitched, eventually it's going to catch up with you?
Yeah, to me, it's the latter, Gary. You just you're looking for a guy when you want someone to end the game, to close the game. A guy that has a lot of swing and misses. You don't want a guy that gives up a lot of hits and has to work out of a lot of jams. Now, Henry did that last season, but it's not like Mejia is not what not Mejia, but Familia has some flaws also. So it's both of these young right-handers still have some work to go, but very talented.
It certainly makes you wonder, and I know that Terry Collins has thrown this out there, that basically right now Mejia is holding the job for Bobby Parnell. That Bobby lost it because he got hurt. And, he proved that he could be an effective closer 2 years ago before he hurt his neck, and that the job is waiting for him.
Well, I'll tell you, the length of that bullpen will look pretty impressive if you do have Parnell come back, able to take that 9th inning and have Mejia and Familia, Edgin, and others.
Black.
Vic Black. I forgot about Vic Black.
Yep. Black was tremendous coming down the second half of the year last year. That one trickles away from Carrillo, but no advance. And don't forget about Carlos Torres, who was invaluable last year. Led the majors in relief innings last season.
Cutter King.
And had the great 0 days rest start late in the year.
That's right.
Pitched 5 scoreless innings on 0 days rest. First time that had been done in the big leagues in about 25 years. Brian Holiday had a sacrifice fly his last time up. 0 for 1 on the day. Tigers 3 runs, 5 hits. The Mets 1 run, 4 hits. 2-2 to Holiday. We're talking about whip. Last year, Henry Mejia's whip, walks and hits per innings pitched, 1.48.
Too high.
That's just too high.
Yeah, you want it in 1-1 range is a nice whip. The elite pitchers like a Kershaw, others are sometimes under 1. They're so good.
Matt Harvey's career whip is 0.985. 2-2. And it's popped up. Long run for Campbell. And a nice play for the first out.
He made that one look easy. It's not an easy chance right here. He picks up where the wall is. Well done.
The great first baseman always make it look easy. Tonight at 6, it's a unique look at the day's sports news as Steve Covino and Rich Davis break it all down from a fan's perspective on the Covino and Rich Show tonight at 6, only on SNY. That's barring extra innings, right? 1 out and 1 on. Here's Daniel Fields, who has flied out and struck out.
Well, Daniel had great instruction, right? His dad, Bruce Fields, Tigers hitting coordinator in the minor leagues.
A couple of second-generation big leaguers for the Tigers today. Andrew Romine on deck. His dad, Kevin, plays with the Red Sox.
Who's Gary Ward's son who played the big leagues for
Darrell Ward.
Darrell Ward for about 10 years plus.
Darrell Ward, who I think is still the only guy to hit the ball in the water at PNC Park on the fly.
Well, Ronnie, you mentioned that Carlos Torres was the cutter king. Henry Mejia is the slider king. He loves to throw that slider.
Well, we saw from day one, right? When we saw him here as a 20-year-old, he always had that cutting, sliding movement to his fastball. Just natural.
Curveball misses. Well, the hardest thing with Mejia has been figuring out what his role should be. And remember, they brought him up to the big leagues as a 20-year-old in 2010, and then he sat around in the bullpen, and it was basically a lost year for him. Then he hurt his arm, brought him back as a starter. He insisted he wanted to be a starter, and he really had to be convinced last year that it was the right thing for him to go to the bullpen. Tejada to Flores, and it skips by Campbell and goes into the dugout, and that will give Fields second base.
Nice feed here. Backhand feed. Just not a good throw. And Campbell could have gone out there a little more with his glove to make it a shorter hop. But then again, Campbell's not really a first baseman.
So it's a fielder's choice. Error on the shortstop Flores, allowing Fields to move up. Runner in scoring position with 2 out for Romine. You know, speaking of first baseman making picks, I had a chance to watch the Nationals' new first baseman Ryan Zimmerman last night pick a couple of balls nicely out of the dirt.
Well, you know what? It's a corner infield position. The footwork is what's most difficult if you're going to transition to first base. It's getting used to the bag, getting there, picking up the throw, straddling the bag, stretching wherever direction the ball comes. That's the difficult part. If you've got good hands, you pick backhands before third base on hot shots.
Well, I think it's a great move for Zimmerman. It doesn't take his arm completely out of play, but it's one less thing for them to worry about.
The hard part for me, Keith, though, how difficult is it to go from the third baseman's glove to the first baseman's glove? That's the issue for me. You're so used to that smaller mitt.
Bigger the mitt.
Yeah, easier it is, I guess, to pick it, right?
That's one way to look at it. I'll never admit to it.
So you're saying first base is an easy position? Is that what you're saying? Got that big mitt. What could be easier? Romine 0 for 2, reached on Familia's throwing error and scored a run his last time up. Mejia, the 4th Met pitcher of the afternoon. Matt Harvey, 2 perfect innings. Noah Syndergaard gave up 2 runs in his 2 innings, and Familia an unearned run in his 1 inning. Mejia strikes out Romine to end this inning. That's 7 strikeouts for Met pitching this afternoon. 3-1 Tigers in the 6th.
That's the biggest mistake that fish ever made.
Wow. I'm not sure we want to show it from here.
Well, it's nature.
But it's not National Geographic.
Yeah, I mean, really, that's not what people tune in for. Well, they tune in to see Aaron Westlake now playing first base for the Tigers. Hernan Perez moves from short to second. Dixon Machado is now at shortstop. Former Mets farmhand Jeffrey Marte is at third. Matt Dendecker leads off. There are more changes, and we'll tell you about those. That's Tyler Collins in left field for the Tigers. Winton Bernard in center. The new pitcher is Omar Duran.
Well, he was in the Oakland Athletics farm system last year. Had 79 punch-outs in his 60 innings of work.
Did we mention the new catcher?
Not yet.
Well, there's Matt Dendecker batting for the second time. Actually, it's his first official at bat because he was at the plate when Castellanos got picked off. So there is Miguel Gonzalez, the new catcher. So I think you're up to date now. Dendecker down on strikes against the left-hander, and that's the first out in the home sixth.
Well, a good breaking pitch here from Omar Duran. He's going to get a look because last year Phil Koch was their left-hander out of the bullpen, one of their left-handers. So Duran's going to get a look here in spring.
Koch just signed with the Cubs.
Yes.
Just in the last couple of days. Danny Muno up for the first time, takes a strike. Let's send it downstairs to Steve Gelb. Steve.
All right, Gary, here with Travis d'Arnaud, just wrapped up his day. Trav, let's start back at the beginning. Matt Harvey looked pretty good from our perspective. How was he looking from yours?
He looked great for me.
What was it in particular that was working so well for him today?
He had all his pitches. Worked with him today. I mean, you could tell that he was locked in, and all the fans here and all the crowd was real excited for him.
Well, we saw him get up to 99. Did you feel that in your middle, a little bit extra?
I didn't even see, but a lot of his fastballs he threw were a lot harder than what I'm used to.
Do you think that's something that he can consistently stay with, or just the adrenaline here today?
Probably both. I would say.
All right, he has talked a lot about he can't beat that injury and it not being an issue. Did you feel like he was in midseason form today?
I felt like he was great. I had a chance to catch him one time, but I thought he looked better this time than last time I caught him.
What type of extra work have you done with him trying to get that rapport going here in spring?
Just a lot of talking, a lot of communication with him, and just knowing how he thinks on the mound. That's it.
You talk about communication. We saw you talk a lot with Syndergaard after that second inning of his. What were you telling him? Such a good first, and then in that second seemed like he was struggling through a little bit.
Dan and I were just, telling him to take a deep breath and relax. His stuff's so great that he can get anybody out, and he just has to execute pitches.
All right, Travis, let's talk a little bit about you now. First of all, new number here, 7. You and Bob Guerin worked something out. What'd you have to do to get that number from him?
I haven't done anything yet, but I have something planned. The date just hasn't come yet.
Can you tell us about that?
No, I cannot. I don't want him to know.
All right, pretty good. Last season, such a resurgent second half from you. What type of confidence does that bring into this year, especially at the plate?
I feel good. I feel really relaxed, and knowing what I can do works. And now it's just a matter of putting in the work and having fun out there.
We saw you struggle at times throwing to second base. You had that surgery in the offseason because of the bone spurs. How much, looking back, did that really bother you?
It didn't allow me to have a full range of motion, which probably, made my balls cut a lot because I couldn't extend my arm all the way. But now it feels great, and my throws have been more consistent.
Is there something specifically you've been working with Bob Guerin on this spring to get them there?
Yeah, just a lot of transfer drills, a lot of footwork drills, and just working in and day out and having that consistent workout.
What is the routine like as we see here? Oh, great double play turn to end the inning, actually. So, Trev, we'll come back. We'll talk to you a little more in a little bit, but let's send it back to Gary for now.
All right, thanks. Almost a mess up at second base by the Tigers, but Machado able to turn the 1-6-3, and we go to the 7-3-1 Tigers.
On the mound for the Mets as they trail 3-1, top of the 7th inning. Back here with Travis d'Arnaud, finishing up some things. Trav, you have worked with a litany of guys here in spring training. What is the daily routine for you in terms of making sure you're on the same page with each and every pitcher and learning some of the new pitchers?
Just talking with them. Talking with all the catchers, even talking with Dan and all the pitching coaches here, and just going over what they did that day and just having fun.
A lot of good, young, exciting arms, obviously, in this organization. Outside of Syndergaard, who we saw today, who has really impressed you in this camp?
Well, there's a bunch of guys. Matz has obviously impressed me. I mean, he's got electric stuff, and it's from the left side. And I tell you what, if he was pitching, I don't know if I'd want to be in the box against him. Akil Morris has actually impressed me pretty well. He's got a really good changeup and a good fastball and really good command, and he's really what's the word I'm looking for? Deceptive. There you go. And there's
pretty good.
Yeah, there you go. And Velasquez, actually, I caught him with the Phillies in 2009, and now with the way he's thrown, it's like night and day of how much he's improved. So he's really impressed me as well.
When it comes to Matz, I was watching him the other day, and it looks like he's got a real almost flick at the end of his ball, and it kind of pops up on you. Is that something you see, the extra kind of movement where it comes on quick?
Well, I think it gives his ball more life. Out of his hand, it's probably 95, and it stays 95 the whole time instead of it slowing down to, let's say, 90.
We talk so much about pitchers having to build up to get deep into games throughout the regular season. What about you? You just went 5 innings behind the plate. Is there a build-up for you having to squat and get to that major league ready or game ready type play?
Oh yeah, most definitely. Catching 9 innings is a grind, and I just got to keep working and get my conditioning up.
All right, well, you grinded it out there. You grinded it out with a 2-part interview with us, so go take a seat. All right?
Thanks for having me. I appreciate it.
All right, thanks, Travis. Guys, back to you.
All right, the interview brought to you by City, and what a play by Scott Rice. The barehanded grab on the toss from Eric Campbell.
It's interesting on this play. You see him sprint almost right to the bag. A lot of times you're taught to run to the line and then the last 10 feet square up and go through the bag. But on that kind of play, it's going to be bang, bang. He went right to the bag and made the play.
And he got a fast man in Xavier Avery for the first down. Now Winton Bernard bats for the first time. Played an A-ball last year. Scott Rice, the 5th Met pitcher of the afternoon, and trying to reclaim his spot in the Mets bullpen. He was such an integral part of this team 2 years ago, and then struggled with elbow problems last year. Wound up having surgery for a bone spur and an ulnar nerve transposition, which does not sound very nice at all. He's a non-roster player, and frankly, not a lot of people are talking about Scott as he throws out Bernard, but given the perseverance that he showed just to get to the big leagues after 14 minor league seasons, I wouldn't bet against him.
And wasn't the year before he had that great 2013 season, after the year he had a sports hernia surgery, right? So I wonder if that was related to hurting his arm the next year.
Luke Pekonen is up in the Tigers bullpen. Well, Rice is in a battle with guys like Sean Gilmartin and Jack Leathersich as the potential second lefty in the bullpen. But the Mets might not have a second lefty in the bullpen. Grounded down to third. And a nice easy inning for Rice. He threw just 8 pitches. 7th inning stretch time, 3-1 Detroit. With instant updates from Port St. Lucie, featuring interviews, video diaries, and informative links. Get an up-close perspective from fans blogging about the team they love on Mets Blog, presented by Citi, featured on SNY.TV. Changes for the Tigers. That is Connor Harrell now playing right field, and veteran Luke Peconin is on the mound. Jorge Castillo up for the first time, and yes, that's how it's pronounced. His first name begins with an X, not his. He just has the silent T in the middle of his last name, Peconin. It's spring training for spelling as well. There's Vic Black up in the Mets bullpen.
Can't get that one wrong.
Peconin? Black. Oh, Black. Vic. Jorge Carrillo came in behind Travis d'Arnaud today.
Peconin, North Carolina Tar Heel. Almost a lost season for him last year. Had right elbow inflammation for much of the year.
Pitched very well for the Tigers 2 years ago. Carrillo, who played most of the year at Binghamton last year, is a backup catcher, drives one the other way, and he has himself an opposite field hit. So the Mets get the leadoff man on in the 7th. Here's your Mets upcoming schedule presented by WB Mason. Look at all the colors.
Wow.
That's very nice.
Well, yes. Doesn't really help me, but go ahead.
We'll be on Pix 11 tomorrow. Who's doing the play-by-play for that game tomorrow? That's you.
They're going to have a rookie attempt it.
Me and you, Ronnie. I think you'll have a lot of fun.
I'm going to lean on 17. I did it as a player. I'll do it as a broadcaster.
Here's John Mayberry, who has played the entire game. And he takes ball 1. Mayberry singled off the glove of the second baseman his last time up. And we started the day with a North Carolina Tar Heel on the mound. And we got another one out there now. Peconin, who was 3 years ahead of Matt Harvey at Chapel Hill, so they were never teammates. Having trouble throwing strikes. He fell behind Carrillo 3-0, gave him a base hit. Now he's 3-0 on Mayberry.
We've already seen Mayberry swing once in this game, 3-0.
That was with a couple of men on in the second, and he popped up. This time he takes it high, ball 4, and the Mets have the tying runs on base. So a shaky start for Luke Peconin. Wilmer Flores will come up with 2 men on. We'll get a pinch runner for Mayberry. Cesar Puello will come in. So Puello runs for Mayberry at first. Carrillo is on second, and Flores, who's played the whole game at short, will step in. Tigers get the lefty up in their bullpen. That's Kyle Ryan. David Price started for Detroit today and went 2 hitless innings. Peconin, the 5th pitcher of the afternoon for Detroit. And with the corners in looking for a bunt, none forthcoming.
Spring training, I want to see Flores hitting with men on base. Wally Backman said that Flores was one of his best clutch hitters the AAA years he had with Wally.
It's not only that. Flores is only valuable if he hits. I mean, and hits a lot. Hits a ton.
I think that if you're, there's Wally, who managed Flores a good part of last year. I think if you're an American League manager playing a National League team, sometimes you expect things to happen differently. But, you know, it's easier to forget that it's spring training and you're not going to play the way you would in a regular season game.
You got a DH in your lineup anyway.
Good cut by Flores right there.
Anthony Recker batting ninth and DHing today on deck. Mets have been limited to 6 hits today. They've made 3 errors. Mets swung the bat well their first 2 games in spring. Scored 8 runs against the Braves on Wednesday. 4 more last night against the Nationals. 2-2 to Flores. This is really the first game where the Mets regular lineup has been out there. It was the first game for Granderson and Kadire and Wright and Murphy.
Ah, there's Al.
Al Jackson.
I'll be darned.
50 years.
Left-handed. What a nice man.
One of the nicest ever.
And as far as pitchers in this organization are concerned, one of the best ever. And that's going to drop for a base hit in front of Harrell. The runners have to hold up. And so Correa will pull in at third. So Flores dumps one into right, and the Mets have the bases loaded with nobody out.
Yeah. You're either going to be halfway or you're tacking up. Puello does it perfectly. Can't advance.
Matt Reynolds is going to run for Flores at first base. There's Matt. Nice to see him wearing 2 5s this spring. Remember last spring he came over from minor league camp. He was wearing 1 5, and that created quite a bit of confusion. So Recker bats with the bases loaded and nobody out. I mean, it's one thing to say you're never going to have a captain again. It's another thing to give the captain's number away. How about that?
I know. Well, the other part about it is that Matt Reynolds is kind of like David Wright light. You know, he's like a little smaller version, but kind of built the same. You know, stocky, strong.
What about Brian Cashman saying that the Yankees should never have another captain? What if they had said that after Lou Gehrig? I mean, come on.
Yeah, exactly. Well,
I agree.
Yeah. He is a great captain. You hope you have someone that could be another captain.
Exactly. It doesn't have to be in the next 5 or 10 years, but eventually. That should get a run home, but the Tigers able to turn 2. 6-4-3 double play as Correa comes in to score to cut the Detroit lead to 3-2.
Taylor made. Ball hit hard right at him.
So the Tigers have turned double plays in each of the last 3 innings. They had the pinball double play back in the 5th. They had the comebacker double play where the second baseman and shortstop ran into each other in the 6th, and now they have a more routine 6-4-3 here in the 7th. Alex Castellanos is hit by the pitch. So the second Met to be hit in the hand or arm today. Daniel Murphy went out after being hit by a pitch, suffered a contusion on his hand, and now Alex Castellanos in some discomfort.
Either to get him on the elbow or the tricep.
I couldn't quite figure that one out.
It got him on the back arm, right? It missed his front arm, didn't it?
I'd like to see that again.
I don't know. Maybe it caromed because he's in a lot of pain.
So Castellanos is coming out of the game. Let's see.
Oh, elbow. Front elbow. That hurts. Or maybe not. He's not touching.
I think it was the right elbow. No? That it missed that front arm?
Get some ice on it.
In any event, Brandon Allen will come in to run for Castellanos. So a painful day. First Murphy and now Castellanos leaving the game after being plunked. So now the Mets have runners at the corners with 2 out, and Matt Dendecker will bat for the second time. Dendecker struck out his first time up. And the curveball in for a strike from Peconin. Well, the Mets have made the least of the most the last few innings. They've had 9 base runners in the last 3 innings and scored 1 run. A ball and a strike to Dendecker. Tigers bullpen very much an area of concern. They'll have Joe Nathan back at age 39 to handle the closing. They just re-signed Jabba Chamberlain to add him to the mix. They've got Joaquin Soria probably as their setup man.
Well, the one they're looking at too is coming off Tommy John surgery is Bruce Rondon.
Right. He was supposed to be the guy last year before he hurt his elbow. They just released Joel Hanrahan, who was apparently going to now need a second Tommy John surgery. They were hoping that he'd be able to reclaim. Remember how great he was a couple of years ago in Washington?
Right.
Yeah, did a nice job in Pittsburgh.
Pittsburgh too, yeah. He came back stronger than ever.
Game can be cruel at times.
2-2 now to Dendecker. And the breaking ball down, full count.
Buchanan's got one of those, which you call a lazy breaking ball. Doesn't seem to be fooling anybody. It's kind of a, it's not a sharp breaker, easy to read.
Well, you got the first baseman holding against Cuello with a 3-2 count, a left-hand hitter up.
Yep.
He's running. And the non-fake to third, which you are allowed to do. It's just always surprising because for so many years you saw guys fake throws to third.
Well, it's funny. You see in spring training, they've already tried 2 pickoff moves and almost an attempted one when Iglesias was in the game. But these are things that after spring training you might not see all year.
Right. They've just been working on the backfields. Dendecker drives one toward right center. Over in the gap goes Harrell. Can't make the diving catch. Cuello's in with the tying run. Here comes Allen around third. He will score, and the Mets take the lead. A 2-run double for Matt Dendecker, and it's 4-3 New York.
Nice 2-strike hitting by Dendecker. A lot of airtime, and this gets late in the ball game here. It gets to be kind of a difficult sun field for the right fielder.
Well, Harrell was a little tentative on the ball. Flores hit toward the line earlier in the inning. And not quite equal to this task either. And Allen running with the pitch, able to score all the way from first with the go-ahead run. So the Mets have scored 3 here in the 7th to go in front 4-3, and now Danny Muno will bat for the second time. It's taken us 3 spring trainings to finally figure out how to pronounce Danny's name.
You got it? What is it now?
It's Muno.
Muno.
So the N-Y is not over the N, it's over the U.
Okay.
Think of, here's how I remember. You know, in San Francisco, they've got the 2 transit systems,
That's
the
right.
BART and the other one, the Muni.
The Muni.
Muno.
Muno, okay.
2-0 to Muno. Danny keeps putting up big on-base percentages in the minor leagues. And he cracks that one foul.
Keith, your brother Gary would know this. When you are a golfer and you play the local tracks that are for the public, they're called your munis.
Right. With an I.
Yeah.
Municipal. Yep.
28th pitch of the inning coming up for Paconen. He misses with that curveball. 3-1. You know, last year played at Vegas. 372 on base percentage in 359 at bats. So you know why they think highly of Danny.
He's always been an on-base percentage guy, hasn't he?
Yep. Switch hitter. Can play second and third. He's only 26, but he's a guy who you think of as a future utility guy in the major leagues. That's what his role might be. And there's ball 4, and he is on base. So that's what he does best. And I think that's going to be all for Paconen. 30 pitches. I'm sure they don't want to throw any more in this 7th inning. He's walked 2. He's hit a batter. Given up 3 hits, and he'll exit. And Kyle Ryan will come on for him. We'll be right back. On SNY, Zach Wheeler makes the start as the Mets play the Marlins. Mets-Marlins presented by Citi. Coverage begins Monday at 1, only on SNY. Eric Campbell bats against Kyle Ryan and takes the breaking ball low and away.
Kyle Ryan made his debut for the Tigers last year in late August. Pitched his second game of a doubleheader against the Chicago White Sox and threw 6 shutout innings.
Began the year in Double-A last year. Ryan just 23 years old. Campbell up for the second time, was hit by a pitch his first time up. That's about 3 batters hit by pitches today, and that time a throw to first where the first baseman was playing behind the bag. They really are going all out with the pickoff plays today.
It's kind of a timing play. First baseman I used to work with, they would give you an open glove. As soon as they would open it is when you would throw to first.
Who was that guy?
Well, Keith wouldn't do it, not especially in spring.
My open wasn't open glove. My fist was for the catcher, but with the pickoff with the catchers my whole career. I'd make a fist on my throwing hand, and I'd have to get a return fist from the catcher. Otherwise, I wasn't going to waste my time going to the bag.
Didn't Goose Gossage once get a closed fist from a catcher?
Yes, he did.
Goose. 3-0 now to Campbell. The 8th man up in the inning. Mets have 3 runs home here in the 7th to take a 4-3 lead. Dendecker at second. Muno at first. Ryan behind Campbell 3-0, and there's a strike. Campbell yesterday in Vieira hit a laser beam of a home run off Tanner Roark. It went out to left field, and it was still rising when it went over the fence. It was as hard as I think we've ever seen Campbell hit the ball. And Eric pops this one up in foul ground. Should be easy for Westlake. And that retires the side. Mets take the lead on Dendecker's 2-run double. Vic Black coming on for the 8th. Exclusive interviews straight from camp, plus insider info and debate as the Mets continue their Grapefruit League schedule. Daily News Live presented by Citi today at 5 only on SNY. Changes for the Mets. Brandon Allen, who pinch ran, stays in the game at first base. Matt Reynolds, who pinch ran, stays in at short. Eric Campbell moves from first base to left field. Cesar Puello stays in the game in right field. And Vic Black is on to be the 6th Met pitcher of the afternoon.
How about the right-handed arms that the Mets have featured today? Harvey, Syndergaard, Familia, Mejia, and now Vic Black, as you see his numbers in the 41 games last year. Outstanding ERA.
And you were talking about pitchers coming in with men on base. Nobody did that better than Vic Black did it last year.
It's a special talent to be able to come in and rise to the occasion. Vic did last year.
Stranded 25 of his 26 inherited runners, including the last 23 in a row to end the season.
That'll get you dinner every night on the road from your starting pitchers.
And what's amazing about that is Carlos Torres gets up in the Mets bullpen, is that he's a guy who walks people. And you wouldn't think that a pitcher who walks people would be that successful at working out of inherited runner situations. Black pitching to Tyler Collins is up for the first time. And promptly behind 3-0. And we go downstairs to Steve Gelb. Steve?
Thanks. It's a very thickly bearded Kirk Neuenhuis. It's like 8 out, man. You don't think about shaving that off during the spring?
I didn't plan that out very well, did I? Up in Seattle, we get a little colder weather.
You're kind of a trendsetter, though, because it seems like there's more beards out here than normal this spring.
Yeah, I'd like to think so. You know, we didn't plan this out or anything, so yeah, I'd like to think so.
All right, let's talk about your performance here early in camp, batting .714 through your first 2 games. Can you keep that up?
Yeah, let's do it.
Even if you dip a little bit down to about 500, not that bad. But that first game 2 days ago, 4 for 4. And listen, you're the spot secured. When you get off to that type of start in the spring, what does that do to move you forward?
Well, I think you really got to take it one game at a time. I hate to use that cliche, but it's long season. But you know what? It's long spring too. You don't think about that. It's a month with one day off, and some of us are playing every day, and I didn't play today, but it's good to have a day like that for sure. But in the long run, you're going to get so many at bats that you need all of them.
You and I talked about this a little bit last year, that transition from being an everyday player and having that be your mentality to switching to being a bench player and what that mentality entails. How do you feel you've grown in that regard over the last couple of years?
Well, I think I've grown quite a bit. Quite a bit. I think in 2012 when I was playing every day for, 2 or 3 months, and then I started pinch hitting later in the year, I really had no idea what to do. And it was such a different mindset going up there that I think all that experience in late 2012, 2013, and then last year, all that experience that I gained from those at-bats, it's helped me a lot. And, I think most of it is mental, but, I made some mechanical adjustments physically last year that have helped me too.
In what way specifically have you had to change your mindset? What do you do differently when you're a pinch hitter versus when you're starting?
Well, I think you prepare differently. Just, you can't get used to, as a bench player, sometimes you get used to that BP, that batting practice speed. And it messes up your timing pretty good. So you really have to get in there and track some bullpens if you can, crank up that machine, to, 95, 100, just to get used to, something more realistic, because you never know when the next at-bat's coming.
In terms of what we saw today, a lot of people out here to see Matt Harvey pitch. What did you think watching from the dugout here?
Well, I'll tell you what, I got chills watching him go out there. We all know what he's been through. And, he's not the first. No, it's not fair. He's not the first guy to go through Tommy John, but it was tough to see him chomping a little bit last year, and we're all happy to have him back. Clearly, there are different vibes in this clubhouse, this camp, and a lot of it has to do with Harvey, but a lot of it has to do with just the way the team finished last season and what you've got coming back in general. How excited are you for this upcoming season, and how excited, the guys talked with us about it, but in the room, how much talk is there about what you guys could do? Well, I think you're right. It is a different vibe, and you hit it on the head just with this pitching staff and how we finished up last year too. We played pretty well down the stretch last year, I think the last month or so, and we really didn't have very many guys. We were down to not very many guys. So but yeah, we're really excited. Really excited for this year, for sure. Kirk, appreciate the time. All right, thanks, Steve. Gary, back to you.
All right, thanks, Steve. The interview brought to you by Citi. Vic Black trying to work out of some trouble. A walk, a wild pitch, a ground out, tying run, a third one out. And Aaron Westlake takes one the other way, and that'll tie up the game. Collins comes in to score, and it's a 4-4 ball game.
It's amazing how those leadoff walks will always bite you.
See, so he won't surrender other people's runs.
He's surrendering his own. Well, I'm happy for Kirk Neuenhuis. He's put a lot of hard work in. He's a terrific athlete who's kind of had to learn how to hit as a professional ball player. And he's got those movie star looks. That's the Jeremiah Johnson Robert Redford he's got working right now.
That's a very, very big beard. It's not the biggest one of the ball club, though. Bobby Parnell has that one hands down.
A couple of years ago when the Red Sox won the World Series, they blood, sweat, and beards, they called it. More players wear those big beards. I don't know how they get through the spring and summer with a big beard. Just too hot, but they can do it.
Miguel Gonzalez batting for the first time, and now Westlake takes off. And he's able to beat the throw by Carrillo. So the Tigers being super aggressive on the base path. Second time in the inning, they've taken an extra base on a short wild pitch.
They have really run the bases very alertly here in a spring training game. That's the second wild pitch from Black.
So the go-ahead run in scoring position with one out. Black pitching to Miguel Gonzalez, who had a cup of coffee with the White Sox 2 years ago. And the curveball misses 2-1.
Hard to keep track of the Miguel Gonzalez's in Major League Baseball. You got the pitcher in Baltimore.
That's right.
Got the pitcher with the Phillies. And now this catcher. Keith will remember the day of the Gene Washingtons.
Oh, yes.
Remember that with the Vikings and the 49ers?
Yep, I sure do. Gene went to Stanford, I
Which
believe.
one?
Yes, that's right. I believe it was the Gene Washington. It was Plunkett's sophomore year and Gene Washington's last season. Then Randy Pataha came in for the Stanford Indians. I'm showing my West Coast stripes here.
And your age. Well, Ronnie was mentioning the hard-throwing right-handers the Mets have sent to the mound today, but it was the lefty who had the easiest inning.
That's right.
Scott Rice, an 8-pitch, 1-2-3 seventh, and 3 ground ball outs, just like it was 2013 all over again for Scott. Shallow center, and Dendecker's right there. 2 out. So now it's Daniel Fields up for the 4th time. He's been the DH this afternoon for the Tigers. Detroit last year won 90 games. Won their division by a skinny game after beating the Twins the final day of the season. And then got crushed in 3 games by the Orioles in the division series. Their bullpen blew up in game 1. They got outscored, I think it was 7-6 in the second game, and then Price pitched great, but got outpitched in game 3.
4th year in a row they won the AL Central. They've kind of, people have picked recently the Washington Nationals to go all the way. Well, the Tigers went through that period too. Only Phillies with 5 straight, as the Mets would know, from 2007 to 2011. 5 straight NL East crowns.
Well, the Tigers imported David Price last year midseason to give them 3 aces, which they figured would be their ace in the hole once it came postseason time. That didn't work, so now Scherzer leaves. Now they've got Verlander, who's coming off the worst year of his career, as the number 2 to Price, and you wonder whether they have enough pitching. 0-2 from Black, and just got a piece of it. And they beat out the Royals by a game, but the Royals got their comeuppance by making it to the 7th game of the World Series.
And I bet you a lot of people couldn't tell you that the Indians behind Michael Brantley won 85 games last year, right?
Corey Kluber.
Yeah, he was pretty good too. Cy Kluber.
Stetson grad, just like Jacob deGrom.
To land Florida.
Here's the 0-2. And did he go? He did not. So Fields is still in there at 1-2.
Now they lost Scherzer, they lost Porcello. Alfredo Simon's coming off a 15-win year with Cincinnati. He had a fine year, but that's the first real fantastic year he's ever had.
It's his first real year as a starter.
That's right.
And they've got the very underrated Anibal Sanchez as
when he pitches.
Right.
It's hard for him to make those 32, 33 starts, though.
Their breakout performer last year was J.D. Martinez, a guy who used to be in Houston and had been languishing as an extra outfielder, and he just had a phenomenal year.
We had him for 23 home runs and 76 RBI.
315 and 123 games.
Yeah, 358 on base percentage.
By the way, he went 3 for 3 yesterday. So it looks like he's primed to do it again. Black having trouble putting away Daniel Fields. Up to 23 pitches for the inning. This game got off to a rip-roaring pitching start with Matt Harvey against David Price. Harvey blew his way through 6 batters without giving up a base runner. Price ran into a little second inning trouble on a walk and hits batsman, but he didn't allow a hit. Fields had that ball carry him off his body. It's a foul ball.
What's nice about these spring training games, you can really hear the umpires taking charge. Tom Payne, the home plate umpire, with the loud yelling of foul, foul off the foot of Fields.
We had a sellout crowd this afternoon, somewhere around 7,500 on hand, and most have stuck around.
Well, it's a beautiful day, and it's 80 degrees right now. And it kind of really, believe it or not, it cooled off a little bit. It was muggy this morning.
Fields hooks one to right. Cuellar puts it away to retire the side. But the Tigers tie it up on Westlake's RBI hit. 4-4 as we go to the bottom of the 8th. Leads off the home 8th inning for New York. Behind the times.
That's all right.
Spring training for announcers. Always know what inning it is.
Wait till tomorrow. Ooh. I might not even mention the innings, just not to get them wrong.
Well, it says on the screen.
Oh, I'm gonna.
Ultimately, as a play-by-play guy, this will be rule 1.
Yeah.
As Tejada lines out, is you don't have to say anything. Right? All the information's on the screen, and the people can see the game.
That's right. But you are such an exceptional announcer, to try to keep up with you, Gary, is impossible. But we'll have fun tomorrow. And I don't know, Keith and I, are they going to do the game like 2 guys sitting in a bar watching the game, or the 2 guys from the Muppets that sit in that balcony seat? One or the other is going to happen, I think.
I thought you were going to say Beavis and. Now, you guys did this once before.
We did.
It was a little different because it was a regular season game. It was late in the year.
Yeah, I mean, I'm trying to really get the nuts and bolts of the game for the fans at home. And then in between that, Keith and I will just have some fun.
The hardest part,
yes,
will be is keeping track of the changes during these early spring training games.
The changes, and the other part is, and you guys know me, on air, I will sometimes find the right thing to say, but I'm not a very talkative fellow by nature, so I'm going to have to find the right words tomorrow. The Queen's English at some point.
Just crank up that switch and we'll be ready to
go. The interstitial speaking.
What does that mean anyway?
In between, when things are not happening. Make sure you
That's when you rely on the director to show you the pretty pictures. He's good at that.
He's also been known to subterfuge a few people on the first.
That has happened. Marte throws out Carrillo, and there are 2 out. Hey, get to Citi Field for the 2015 home opener Monday, April 13th, when the Mets host the Phillies at 1:10 p.m. All fans in attendance will receive a 2015 magnetic schedule courtesy of Hyundai. Get your opening day tickets now at Mets.com/opening day. Here's Puello up for the first time. Cesar Puello had a tremendous spring last year, just in terms of the way you look at him as a potential 5-tool player that can run, he can hit for power, he can throw. And then he went out and had a miserable year in the minor leagues after a breakout season in 2013. Now, he was caught in the biogenesis thing. He served a suspension. You don't know how much that had an impact. The raw talent is incredible, but he has really fallen down on the Mets depth chart after a rough year last year.
I would say that it was closer to 4 or 5 years ago. You and I were talking about him and saying, this kid has a chance to be a star in this league.
Well, I think when you get caught doing steroids, it puts a big cloud over your head as to your abilities. As we know, it is a serious PED.
Well, the question also is, you look at his great season in 2013 and you wonder how much was it enhanced.
Yeah, exactly.
And maybe
precisely.
You don't know who the player really is. Is he that 2013 player or that 2014 player? Strikes out against Kyle Ryan after Ryan fell behind 3-0. 1-2-3 inning. Carlos Torres in for the top of the ninth. Mets and Tigers all tied up. Met pitcher of the afternoon.
The rubber arm of the Mets bullpen. You talked about 0 days rest going out and starting. Carlos will take the ball anytime he's called.
Led all major league relievers with 92 bullpen innings. The most for a Mets reliever since Terry Leach in 1988.
Old Rooney. One of my favorite players I ever played, minors and major league ball, with Terry Leach. Couldn't get a nicer guy. Selma, Alabama.
He was a big part of our ball club that year.
87, he went 11-1 or 88?
Yes, he did.
Hit sharply, but right there is Tejada to play it. Tejada took over early in the game for Daniel Murphy, who was hit on the hand by a pitch. Suffered a contusion, got taken for x-rays. Later in the game, Alex Castellanos was hit. We're told he has a contusion on his right middle finger, and he's being taken for x-rays.
Cool.
So a painful day at the plate for a couple of Mets. There's Connor Harrell, who is up for the first time. Carlos Torres, now 32 years old. It took him a while to establish himself in the major leagues. Stints with the White Sox and the Rockies. But he was so valuable last year that he comes to spring training with a sure spot in the bullpen.
He's terrific. They did everything they asked for him. He's one of those guys that likes to pitch every day.
He was put in the right situation. You're right, Keith. I think that he was always in a situation flip-flopping back and forth from the bullpen and starting.
Oh! Harrell gets drilled. There's been a lot of that today. That's it's the first Tiger to be hit after 3 Mets have been plunked. Right in the middle between the 1 and the 9.
I mean, I'm not saying he definitely did it on purpose, because he didn't, but that's where you're taught to hit a person when you're trying to. Right between the numbers.
You know, getting back to Torres, Ronnie, and I think he was the guy that when the pitching staff bullpen was in a little bit of trouble, he was the go-to guy for Collins.
There's Winton Bernard up for the second time. Hit a comeback for his first time up.
You know, it's really invaluable for a manager in a ball club when you make a call down there, or even before the game, you're walking around the outfield talking to your relievers saying, hey, can you give me an inning today? And you have a pitcher like Torres who says, yes, every day. I'm ready every day for you.
So it was August the 18th that, because of a variety of circumstances, he was pressed into service as a starter after he pitched in relief the day before. And he pitched 5 scoreless innings against the Cubs. It was the first time that a pitcher had gone 5 scoreless innings on 0 days rest since 1991, when Bruce Ruffin did it for the Phillies.
Oh. He had that hard sinker slider, Bruce Ruffin.
Wild as a March hare.
That means he must have hit you a couple times.
Yes, he did.
Foul ball.
He threw it over my head. I said, oh, my God, this guy's clueless. He had the good rookie year. Remember, he came up. He won 12 ball games, something like that. Yeah. And then the next year he came out, and I'm going, oh, he's a hard sinker. I'm going, oh, boy, Philly's got 3s, lefties again, and Ruffin can't find the plate. He threw in the back of my head, around 10 feet over my head. I went, oh, my goodness. I moved off the plate a little bit.
Almost made you get a helmet with an ear flap.
So you didn't see him as well as you saw Don Carmen. Remember, back-to-back home runs against Carmen?
Yes.
Those were right about the same time.
That was Straw, myself, Straw, and McReynolds, correct?
Mm-hmm. Carmen used to drill you too, though, didn't he?
Carmen, and so did Shane Raleigh used to throw at me. Shane Raleigh undressed me one time, the worst undressing I ever had. I felt the wind under my chin. I am not exaggerating. I was lucky I got out of the way of that one.
Shadows beginning to encroach at a little after 4 o'clock. 1-2 to Bernard. Well, let's see. The Tigers have a guy up in their bullpen. The Mets do not have a guy up in their bullpen. So don't know whether we're going to have a 10th inning or not if the game is tied. That's drilled to center, but Dendecker's right there. And there are 2 out. Never know with these spring training games. It all depends on what the managers want to do, how many pitchers they have left.
Well, what happens is every organization, then they have to make an adjustment if it rains. But every organization has every pitcher mapped out for the entire month. Who's going to pitch when, how many innings, how many pitches, all of that is done. And the Mets are threatened this weekend because there's a threat of rain both Saturday and Sunday.
And the Mets have a split squad tomorrow, so they've got a whole bunch of people scheduled to pitch between the 2 games. This will play a game in Jupiter against Miami, and they'll play a game here against Atlanta. And we'll have that one for you here, well, actually on Pix 11 tomorrow. That's the game Jacob deGrom will pitch, his first outing of the spring. Here now, Perez breaks his bat, sliding over his Reynolds and makes the flip, but not in time. Well, Reynolds thought he had time to get Harrell at second base, but not quite.
How would you rule that, Gary? Base hit or fielder's choice?
Well, it depends. Could he have thrown out Perez at first base?
It's a routine ground ball. I'd give him fielder's choice. You can't get the base hit on a ground ball to shortstop.
Well, we still don't have the runner in the picture, so it might have been the best laid plan was to throw that ball to first base.
I'm going to put a fielder's choice in.
I believe that's what the scorer has ruled. So the inning continues. The go-ahead run now at second base.
Clearly beat the throw.
Tyler Collins up for the second time. He walked and scored the tying run against Vic Black in the 8th. Torres behind 2-0. Coming up tonight, Geico Sports Night at 10:30. Brandon Marshall coming to the Jets. Who's going to throw to him now? Lots more from here after Matt Harvey's debut and basketball as well. Geico Sports Night at 10:30.
I don't know anything about football, but at one point he was one of the elite wide receivers,
He's
right?
31 years old now. So
okay.
We'll see. Certainly receiver was a big issue for the Jets this past year.
Amongst other things.
Exactly.
Was it an SOJ year, Gary?
It was one of the all-timers.
Jeez. They're all stinko.
But Rex found work pretty quickly. Beef on Rex.
Nine lives, right?
Good for him. 2 out, 2 on. 2-2 to Collins. 4-4 game of the night. And a full count. So it's not coming easily for Torres, who hasn't given up a hit in the inning, but he's hit a batter. And a play not made behind him. Mets have committed 3 errors today. No error on that last one, but you know, defense is going to be something that we're going to be talking about quite a bit with this team this year. Got a Gold Glover in center field and a lot of question marks in other places. Runners going, 3-2, and Collins pops it up. Campbell waiting for it, and the side retired. So Torres finds his way out of trouble. Mets come up in the bottom of the 9th in a 4-4 game.
Welcome to our One for Every.
featuring the return to action of Matt Harvey after 18 months away from competition. He had himself a spectacular couple of innings.
Well, it was fun to watch, both Matt and David Price, of course. But Matt was just, I mean, it's like he didn't miss any time. Spot on. That 3-2 curveball that he threw at the end of the second inning, striking out Brian Holiday, was as good as we saw 2 years ago.
He's the story today.
Yep.
He's really the one thing that you got to fix on because it's so critical for this ball club.
This is Joe Mantiply pitching the bottom of the 9th inning. Matt Reynolds leading off, batting for the first time. Mantiply out of Virginia Tech. Kevin Plawecki on deck to pinch hit. And I think we have an answer as to whether there's going to be a 10th inning or not. There was some subtle hand signaling going on between the managers a few moments ago.
Well, we had our code breakers in the truck here, and we figured it out quickly.
That looks like 9 to me.
Yep. And we're in agreement.
What can I do, says Terry. I got no more pitchers.
Well,
and there is nobody warming up for the Mets.
There's the imitation game and then our club staff. They can break anything.
No, usually it's the visiting team that has got the pitching shortage. The home team guys usually they got their whole squad here.
But like Gary said, the 2 games tomorrow, you don't want to use everyone up.
Yep.
Well, the Tigers have another guy up in their bullpen, but the Mets do not. So this is going to be it. If the Mets don't score, it looks like we will have a tie this afternoon.
Gary, you're heading back up to the Great White North?
I'm actually not. I'm going to be in D.C. tomorrow for Seton Hall, Georgetown, and I'll be back here Sunday.
Okay, great.
And do you know who I'm working with here Sunday? The great Cliff Floyd.
Oh, nice.
He's sitting next to me.
I worked with him on Monday, so I'm excited.
I'll warm him up.
Okay, great.
Cliff doesn't need a lot of warming up.
He's got plenty of stories.
Oh, yes, he does.
Oh.
That's it in the air to deep left. Collins going back near the wall, and it's out of here.
All right.
Matt Reynolds, a walk-off home run in the bottom of the 9th, and the Mets win it 5-4. Now that's a way to put a cap on the afternoon. Matt Harvey starts it. Matt Reynolds ends it and gets the home plate greeting. So Matt Reynolds, who had himself a terrific breakout offensive year, playing in AAA last year, hit 6 home runs between Binghamton and Las Vegas. And in his only at bat of the day, he takes Joe Mantiply deep to give the Mets a 5-4 win.
Well, I think 55 works fine for him, Keith.
Makes a winner out of Carlos Torres. Fastball down to about mid-thigh, out over the plate. As Gary said, had a terrific offensive season last year. Someone for you Met fans to be looking for in the future. That's a bolt.
Nothing but smiles, which punctuated the entire afternoon from the 2 Mets, Harvey and Reynolds. Here's a game summary. The Mets took a lead, fell behind, and win it in the bottom of the 9th. Matt Harvey, the first of 7 Met pitchers, 25 pitches, 6 up, 6 down, 3 strikeouts. And Matt Reynolds ends it with a walk-off home run, and the Mets go to 2-1 on the spring. Matt Reynolds leading off in the bottom of the 9th inning. There wasn't going to be a 10th, and Reynolds makes sure there's not a whole lot of bottom of the 9th either. Mets win it 5-4. Back with more from St. Lucie in a moment.
In New York State.